This week's episode is sponsored by Change. Change is the #1 mentoring programme that teaches you e-commerce from scratch. Change has a real community with real results. I have been working with Ryan for many years now and have attended many of his events and retreats across the world and got to meet members and the amazing community of like-minded people. Ryan works with a lot of big names in the business world, helping them build online businesses and e-commerce. Change offers personal one-on-one support, no experience needed, but like anything, this takes time and is not a get-rich-quick scheme. If you put the work in, you will get the results. E-commerce and online shopping is getting bigger and bigger. This is a great opportunity for anyone that is looking for financial freedom. For more information, go follow Ryan on Instagram at RyanJB, and he will guide you through the steps to help you get started and build a successful online business. You can now follow me on all my social media platforms to find out who my latest guest will be. And don't forget to click the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you're notified for when my next podcast goes live. And boom, we're on. And today's guest, we've got Paul Fitzharris. Paul, how are we?
Yeah, I'm good, brother. I'm good, yeah. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
Doing God's work there. Met police over 20 years, working some of the darkest stuff, like stuff that human beings shouldn't be seeing, working in the child protection unit, kind of catching paedophiles, the dark stuff. We know the corruption, we know the lenient sentences in the UK. That's why it's a hub for majority of these people, because it's a slap on the wrist. It's not like places like Russia or Australia where it can be life in prison. Some people do get life in prison, but not enough for my eyes. I think Russia, it's life in prison, and if you want any sort of parole, you've got to be chemically castrated. I think Australia kind of take their passports and can't travel. The UK, we're talking community service, we're talking getting bail, coming out to commit more crimes, and yeah, very, very lenient here, which we'll touch on. But how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I've been out a couple of years now, sort of just time to decompress. I came out at 21 years. Everyone, should be doing, or the aim is to do 30. But I just thought, I ain't got another 10 years in the tank. So to save myself, I came out.
Yeah, good on you, man, no doubt. Everything will then hit you probably worse because you're not keeping as active as you were, keeping busy and thinking you're doing the right things, to then bang, what was it all for? So
yeah,
we'll get into all that. But before we get into everything though, I always like to go back to the start with my guests, get more of a bit of understanding about you, Paul, where you grew up, how it all began.
Sure. Before that, I'd just say it's surreal, because I'd say about 5-6 years ago, I used to walk the dogs, right? And I used to listen to this podcast. And that exact line, Ben Veron, when it began, do you know what I mean? And that's where life takes you. Suddenly I'm sat here face to face with you, James, speaking about these things. It's like, that's the great thing about life. You don't know where it's going to take you. So
it's full of ups and downs, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is one of your ups in.
Absolutely, yeah. Sitting in this nice
push you right over the edge, mate.
Yeah, I'll start shaking in it. No, so I grew up in a little town called Bedford, Bedfordshire.
I like Bedfordshire. I've stayed there a couple of times.
It's all right. I do have to quickly correct you. It was Bedfordshire Police I was with, not the Met. But so I grew up in Bedford. Pretty unremarkable childhood. Dad was a bit of a hard man, bit of a drinker. They used to call him White Mr. T. He used to wear loads of gold and tracksuits, big trainers, giving it large. Wasn't around much. Quite a big drinker, like I say. Quite a shy kid at school, just sort of breezed through it, left at 16, bumming around a few jobs. And then, ended up in the police somehow. I'm not even sure how. I didn't want to be a copper. I just I did the application, thought, I'll just pull out at some point. Next minute, I'm rolling around the streets of Luton. Luton. You've had Tommy on here and stuff. I've met him. that's where it started out for me in Luton, and I went from sort of, you know, nice jobs, people being nice, to, you know, that town, which is a good town, but it's full on.
Yeah,
it's full on.
What were you like at school?
Yeah, I was quiet. I was good at sports, things like that, but I just academically didn't really interest me. Like I say, I had mum and dad arguing a lot. Dad, like I say, he was quite, I wouldn't say violent, but he'd get drunk, come home, shouting and screaming. That put me in my shell, you know what I mean? It put me in my shell. You know, has an impact on you growing up. And like I say, yeah, I just sort of breezed through school.
Yeah. Is that when it's the abusive households, it was like that back then? When it's more accepted, and you don't realise the damage it does later on in years, because when you're raised as a kid in that schools, you're not taught about emotions and feelings and how to really navigate them. As you know, men come from tough areas where you don't feel emotions, but it does take its toll in years to come, because we don't know what the fuck is going on. Women can sit around, talk shit for hours. Men, we just get on, man. Nobody cares.
Yeah, 100%. And I only started to unpick that now. Like, I only found out years later, between 0 and 5, you know, whatever happens to you between that, you can't undo that. So those experiences from 0 to 5, if it's in a violent household, if it's in an abusive household, you can't undo it. And I certainly live some of that. And like I said, you can go one, two ways. Kind of, you can start becoming a bit of a tearaway yourself, you know, and rebel against it, or you can put you in your shell a bit. And it's certainly my older brother, it sort of pushed him on, and he become a bit like a, you know, a sort of same like as my old man, you know, sort of loud, you know, giving it loads. And I was a bit like my mum, I was quiet. And, you know, I felt like protective towards her, you know, like I say, it was, yeah, if I look back now, you know, that wasn't great behaviour from him, to be honest.
Just you and your brother?
Just me and my brother. And it was just me and him and mum at home. She was brilliant. She always gave us everything we needed. Probably like looked after us too much. You know, the first time I left home, I expected, like, you know, the girlfriend to, like, you know, bring me tea in bed and wash all my clothes, iron. I didn't expect to do anything, you know, because that's what I was expecting. Yeah, that's what I was used to. So, yeah, it was a culture shock.
What was first day in the coppers like?
Yeah, so it was all right, actually. Like I say, I sort of done the application form, and
What did your dad say?
the funny thing was, he hated coffers. He hated them. Like, you know, like I say, he'd been nicked a few times. He's a big drinker. You know, he's called them on names of such. As soon as I joined, they were the best things since sliced bread. Everybody slagged them off. He went mental.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know.
But he showed that he loved you then.
Yeah, I think deep down he's proud. You know, he's proud, but, you know, it was so out of the blue, you know. None of us sort of spoke about it, and suddenly it just happened. Rocked up there, you know, giving you uniform, you're thinking, this is real, you know, like they sent, you know, dress up, you know, and, you know, you go home with your uniform, you stand in the mirror, you know, giving it loads, you know. Oh, yeah. So it seems a long time ago, but, you know.
What was the training like?
The training was all right. I had never been to sort of like college or university, and they send you off for 15 weeks. Don't do it anymore. It's all done in-house, which I think is a bad thing, because it sort of bonded people. And, you know, it was quite regimented back then. You know, you had to polish your boots, but, you know, it was pretty basic stuff.
Kind of army stuff?
Little bit. They tried to make it like that, but, you know, it was good fun. I enjoyed it. There was like quite a big drinking culture, so everyone was sort of like, you know, party and drink at night. And yeah, it was all right. But yeah, it's sort of that flies by. And everyone used to say to me, because you knew where you were going, you would say, oh, you know, you're stationed here. And there was people from all over the country. Go, where are you going, Paul? I say, I'm going Luton. I'd go, you're definitely going to die. You know, and you think, really? You know, like, and it's all fun and games at training school. And then suddenly you land and off you rock to Luton. And, you know, and then the madness begins. Mm-hmm. The absolute madness begins. And my first sergeant, a little Scottish bloke,
Tough.
he was, he couldn't listen, he couldn't get into this was back in the day when there was a height limit. And he was a short bloke, and he was scary. He scared the shit out of me. But he was nails, absolute nails. And yeah, initially I hated it. I thought, this ain't for me. This ain't for me. Like, going around, people are violent, you know, giving it. But actually start to enjoy the madness of it, and start to, you know, the team bonds together. And, you know, before I knew it, I was in the swing of it. And I had joined in I joined in August, but in the May I'd got married to my first wife. It was like the worst time ever because, you know, I was working at this sort of motto, work hard, play hard. So all the team were going out, you know, partying when the day's off. And then you have this intense like work, you know, where Luton is a busy town. And, you know, that ultimately that's why my first marriage failed. So it was just so intense in the work. And yeah, when I look back now, that was, you know, it was a crazy time. It's a crazy time, you know, going from a lad who, you know, was working in gyms and doing nice jobs to, you know, driving around Luton, seeing dead bodies, you know, people would kill themselves, you know, people with knives, you know, things like that. Yeah, it was a culture shock.
Yeah, like you say, with your father growing up, hate the place. I was grew up to hate the place. All my uncles and that were shoplifters, drug dealers.
Yeah.
So any time the police came to the door, it was for a raid or whatever. Yeah. And you grew up to hate them because you see them as the enemy. It's not later on in life you actually see what police officers actually go through on a daily basis. It's a negative job, probably one of the negative jobs in the world to then, like the child abuse, the suicides, the deaths, the car accidents, the fires, the murders. Like, it's so hard, and I never really knew the extent until I started speaking to police officers to then get an understanding of them. The addiction issues within the police, the alcohol, the drugs, and you think that shouldn't be allowed, but when you start to understand what they've been through, what they've seen, it's a coping mechanism to get them through their daily job, man, and it's a tough industry, so I take my hat off to you where people need to understand, listen, there's a lot of bastards in the police, outside the police, in any sort of work.
Of course.
People, there's good and bad everywhere. You get that now, but to then choose a job to then try and help people, and it's like people who I believe veterans go to the army, think they're doing a great cause, fight for your country, patriotic, realising they don't give a fuck about you. They don't care if you lose your life over there. They don't care when you're back. The majority of homeless people are veterans, people who should be getting treated as kings coming back. I don't agree in wars. I've been saying it, but I tried to join the Marines at 18, so my life might have been different, but thankfully I never, because it took me a few years ago to realise how corrupt the government is, the world is, to then be forcing young kids to then go and fight for their battles, for greed and power, money, gold, whatever it is they're fighting for. Like, it's, you do question your life, and it must be sad for people to then go through that and think they're doing the right thing and fighting for the cause and try to save the world, when really the people who are making you do it, they're not making you do it, but the people who are organising for you as if it's a job opportunity and great things, they don't care when it's over. No, they don't give a fuck.
I'd 100% agree on that. I'd 100% agree on that. And, you know, it's a similar sort of, you know, thing in the police, is that you think, oh man, you know, I'm doing a good cause here. I'm helping people. I'm doing all this. You know, people really care about me. But you're just a number. You're a number. You're a pawn. You're then moved pillar to post. And ultimately, the powers be, whether that be senior ranks, government, they don't give a shit about you. You're absolutely right. You know, and they'll drop you at the, you know, they'll just drop you and you'll be finished. So, but it takes a long time to realise that, you know, because you're caught up in it and you're, you know, you're for the cause and it's us v them. Like you said, cops come to the door, there's an us v them thing. You know, you think, it's us against the world. But me personally, like, you know, in 21 years, I think I was assaulted about 2 or 3 times. And that was, you know, there was coppers who always got assaulted because the way they spoke to people. And you know the old adage, oh man, I bet you were bullied at school. Probably true. Yeah, you know what I mean? I used to think that.
How do you feel with that comment?
Yeah.
You were bullied at school.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Why is that the go-to
I
thing?
don't know. Yeah, that's it. Or you only pull me because of this. You ain't pull me because of that. You know, and it's boring. You know, you know, you get to say, I'll pay your wages. Yeah. You know,
you work for me.
Yeah.
I used to say that.
Just
shit. To piss them off.
You go, yeah, of course. But the thing is now you get all these auditors as well going around. They're putting cameras in people's faces and, you know, what legislation this? And yeah, it's a hard job, man. It's just getting harder. So, yeah, I'm glad I'm not a young lad or young girl doing it now, because it's...
I think a lot of people think they're now above the law, not because of all these TikTok videos and people throwing cameras in their face. There's people out videoing police, they're videoing where they're working and the police stations. And the coppers are coming out going, what are you doing?
Yeah, I know.
They're saying, well, like, show me your badge number, this and that. And but you've got to be careful, because people there could be a threat.
Yeah.
There is a threat every day towards the police. So
yeah,
it should be like, I don't agree with some of that shit.
It's
but
boring,
I believe people should know, because police can't abuse their power like anyone. And sometimes I'll get my back up if I get pulled over. And but you don't mind if they're nice. and just doing their job. Okay, I understand that.
Yeah.
But it's they're trying to be a smart ass.
It's how you do it.
Yeah.
It's 100% how you do it. And I met some real arseholes in my time that I used to thought, I don't even like you. You know, I would, if I was with you in a car, I wouldn't want to talk to you. And then, you know, seeing the way they talk down to people, look down on people. And is that insecurities? I don't know. Are they making up for saying? I don't know. But yeah, there is plenty of that. But, you know, I'd say the good outweighed the bad. Certainly in my
What was
time.
your first arrest?
This guy, it was a domestic, and he stuck his foot through a communal door and smashed it up, trying to get him drunk. Man, I felt like a hero. Like, I felt like, oh man, I arrested this guy for criminal damage. You know, I was getting in the car, I was buzzing. I was like going home, waking the missus up, like, I've arrested someone. Yeah, whatever. You know, so, but you know, it felt good. It felt good. But yeah, I can still remember that now. Yeah, 3 a.m, but nothing spectacular.
How many times do you go in the job till you start seeing the horrific things like the deaths, the bodies?
Pretty much straight away, especially in somewhere like Luton. They say if you can police a Luton, you can police anywhere, because you're thrown into the deep end, and you know you're going to suicide, shootings, stabbings, you know, very, very, very quickly, and it's sink or swim. It's sink or swim, and you start to see things, and you're like, whoa, that's pretty bad.
Were you given a heads up to be prepared, or is it a case of thrown at the deep end?
You have like a tutor. You used to, well, I don't know how it works now, but you used to have a tutor for 10 weeks. You know, and I had quite a good lad, and he said, look, you know, strap yourself in. And I said to him after 3 or 4 weeks, this ain't for me. And he's like, everybody says that, just stick out, just stick it out. And you know, he's right. And you start to build up a tolerance, and you start to get like sort of, you know, it's adrenaline hit, isn't it? You know, you're racing around, you know, you're going to fights, you're doing this, you're doing that. And suddenly you think, actually, it's a weird thing. You suddenly become like addicted to the madness of it, you know, and the adrenaline of it. And, you know, if you end up, you know, in a bit of a scrap with someone and nicking them and stuff like that, you know, you think, or you take someone who's a bit bad off the street, you think, actually, yeah, you know what, I can go home and I can sleep well tonight, you know. So yeah, but it's roller coaster. That's how I can describe it. It's the roller coaster of emotions.
Obviously we're not looking now, a lot of racism, a lot of multicultural, very divided. Now we're talking about the grooming gangs and everything that comes with it. It was I think everybody can agree now how much that was swept under the carpet. I think more people are at the forefront now speaking about it, and it's not to point out and pick people, because the majority of people in the UK are white, the majority of paedophiles in the UK are white.
Yeah.
But with the grooming gangs, it is a very small percentage of Muslim grooming gangs to then having the most percentage of being in the grooming gangs. Like it's fucking madness to me. And same as Tommy Robinson, a lot of love and respect for what he does, the work that he does. Obviously, when you're targeting a certain community, it's understandable. For me, I would target everyone. For me, if that's bad, because in Glasgow there was some madness with a white people doing some crazy shit, and they all get big sentences, thankfully. But it's not just any colour, any religion, it's the individual themselves who are doing bad, and people need to waken up and focus on everyone who's doing bad, especially towards kids, grooming gangs. And it is difficult, because for these people to then come forward, there's not much happening, so it doesn't really give them strength to come forward and expose it. Now, we know how bad it is, but that's only the ones who've been caught, and some of them have been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
When did you start seeing the effects of like grooming gangs and child abuse? How far into the job?
So we used to, you know, I certainly remember in Luton, we used to have a couple of real, you know, we had care homes where the kids who were living there. What you got to remember is these kids got nothing. They've got no mum and dad. They've been abandoned, you know, from a young age. So they don't give a shit. They just think, I'm going to go out in the street, I'm going to take drugs, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm not going to listen to anybody. So, you know, we go and pick them up, take them back, you know, and staff would say, like, you know, you bring them back, in an hour's time, there'll be a car outside, you know, 4 up, and they'll take the girls away. What are you going to do about it? And ultimately, you'd say, oh, you just bring us back. But by the time we got there, they were gone. And this was going on. I think, like you're right in what you say, is that they knew, but they didn't know how to handle it. They didn't know what to do about it. You know, these girls wouldn't. The girls, you know, didn't really. They hated the police. They were sort of, you know, led to believe that we were the enemy. So, you know, these lads were like, you know, giving them free booze, free drugs, all these things. They were going hanging out at the takeaways, and the police did not know the scale of what was going on. Did not know the scale. But you know, it's obviously they weren't doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. These people, were they? So, but as you say, it was a part of the community that was a little bit sort of thinking, oh man, we don't want to upset the community. So it was just, it was brushed under the carpet, I think. You know, and you know, we had young girls, young boys telling us to fuck off, oh, fuck yourself, pig. So it you know, ultimately you thought, well, you know, that's, you know, that if you're speaking to me like that, what am I supposed to do? But you know, we should have took more notice of what was going on in them early days.
Yeah, because Sammy Woodhouse, who I had on a couple of months ago, she was 14. Her not like stepmother, but she was staying obviously in
Foster parents.
Like foster parents. So Sammy Woodhouse was with the foster parents. The kid was then Sammy was getting picked up by a man in his 20s, BMW. Yeah. The foster parents knew this.
Yeah.
The police came. The police knew this.
Yeah.
But nothing.
Social workers, yeah. I've met Sammy actually, when I was working child protection. I like Sammy.
Yeah.
You know, she's had a rough life. It was Ash, wasn't it? Ash was a bloke who did some really horrific things to her. You know, and she campaigns for good. She says it how it is. And she goes around to a lot of the police forces actually, you know, and they let her down. The services let her down. They all did, you know, and they saw it out. There's one story she tells where the police were there and she was in bed with him, you know, like mid-20s, and nothing happened. You know, it's crazy, isn't it, when you think about it now? You see a child in bed with a male adult and they were just like, oh man, I'm just staying here. And they walked out there. Not great.
Like I say, back then, it's thankfully, as sad as it is, like if it wasn't for Sammy going through all that, she wouldn't be at the forefront now to try and help others and try and raise awareness, and that's what it's all about. If that's a child under 16, no matter the colour, no matter the fucking religion, they should be getting jailed.
Yeah.
You look at, even back in the day, look at Ronnie Cray.
Yeah.
Before he get done, man, he was a fucking known paedophile. And all the gangsters were celebrating when he got caught in bed with a 14-year-old.
Yeah, I know.
Fucking nonce. Like,
I know.
They're bad bastards.
Yeah.
But then again, back then in the 60s, it wasn't even spoken about. No. Nobody even questioned it.
No.
10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it was getting questioned, but nothing was getting done. Thankfully now, 2025, things are happening and people are getting done.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they are. Something's being done. Is it being enough? Probably not.
Yeah.
You know, and it's still I would say, I can only speak from my own experiences, and I'm not just talking about groom gangs, I'm talking in general, probably 10 to 15 years of soft policing across the every part of, you know, the society. How are you ever going to get that back? Because there's no deterrent. You know, prisons, you know, are full, or you know, there's like a holiday camp in there. Sentences are lenient, so you know, no one gives a shit. You know, they're tiptoeing and must keep the communities happy. Must keep the communities happy. You know, and now you're seeing the result of it. I think now you're seeing the result of, you know, how, you know, fucked up society has become.
Do you think it's always been as bad as this, or do you think the internet's played a massive part? Because on the dark web, they're talking about having millions of people on the dark web from the UK. The figures used to be 20,000 people they thought were paedophiles. Yeah. Now it's well over 1 million, pushing 2 million.
100%. I've had this conversation, and we'll probably touch upon it, but, you know, was there always this amount of paedophiles around? Or do we just, because the internet now, you know, they're sort of, you know, got a place to, you know, come together and get their sort of material? I don't know, but it's an epidemic. It's an epidemic of people. Well, we used to say, I think in the police, there was about 1 in 4 houses there was someone with a sexual interest in children. That high. It was insane. It was insane, you know, and we'll obviously go on to that. But yeah, the internet plays a massive part. Huge part. And the problem is that kids from 2, 3, they've got a screen in their hand. It's used as punishment, it's used as reward. I saw things, James, where they'd get picked up from, you know, YouTube or somewhere like that or whatever, get reported. And you'd have a girl, I remember the case, a girl, she was 8 and she was performing a sexual act upon herself in the toilet upstairs, right? And we got it and we went to see her. She goes, no, you know, very quietly spoken, it's not me. I knew it was her. I'd seen the bathroom, I'd seen her, and I thought, that girl is upstairs on that iPad. This is the time. Someone's obviously encouraging her to send that to someone, but 8 years old, and the sexual act she was doing was, it's just off the scale, and you think, you've just been left upstairs with that iPad. and it is so dangerous. It's so these kids and all these apps, you know, Minecraft, Roblox, they're all getting infiltrated by paedophiles, and they know what the kids want. They either want, you know, more, you know, what's the Fortnite? They want, you know, bucks. They want this. They want that. And they know how to do it. They know how to do it, and that's scary. So the internet is playing a massive part, and it's scary. It's scary what's happening.
Because I had Ian on, he was an undercover. He went undercover to be a paedophile.
Yeah.
Played the part, had to befriend them, had to sit in flats with them while he was waiting for like a 11-year-old boy to come up, and they says they were all like clucking like fucking addicts, all excited. And he was saying, like, a lot of these people use Facebook, they go on dating apps, they don't target the kids straight away. They target the single mothers, then target and going out on dates, target them first a year, 2 years. Like, it's a long game. It's not a case of, like, some people might not be able to hold their urges.
Yeah.
But some of them, majority of them, is a long game, a year, 2 years, and become the good guy, do everything right, and then bang, like the fucking, the dirt comes in, and then the madness comes in, and then they've destroyed lives.
Absolutely. We used to work with the UCs, you know, and they would do the job, and then we would do the enforcement, you know, go and do the nick and stuff like that. And yeah, these people are clever, man. They ain't just, like you say, they ain't just message someone, go, do you fancy this? They take their time, they groom mum, or they groom mum and dad. We had one where they were the friendly couple next door, groom these couple. He already had a conviction for images, but he'd changed his name, and they were a friendly couple next door, and he groomed the family till mum let him babysit from sort of like 6 months old, and then he was running a paedophile ring. People coming all across all the country and live streaming it, and yeah, it was horrific. This was in Luton. It's horrific, but they did that over a period of time. Just groom this family where they were thinking, oh, he's so lovely next door. He's so lovely. He's letting us go out, and I do the school run. When she was doing the school run, he was there abusing the baby with 4 other dudes. You know, it was just like, he actually did kill himself inside.
Beautiful.
You know, but yeah, you know, it's scary what they do. Scary what they do.
When did you get into the child protection thing? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I, after a few years of Luton, then I tried, a few other different roles. The good thing about police, you can move around. First, I tried the armed police. That was funny, man. Like, I thought I'd be just going there,
shooting everyone.
Yeah. I realised actually the training's really tough. Like, you know, I'd be confident if someone with, you know, a handgun, if I was 20 meters away, they'd probably miss me. I certainly miss them. So that's one of the skills for the job, is you need to be able to hit a target. And I struggle with that. So that I didn't go through with that. I kicked around in a couple of other things, surveillance, things like that. And then an opportunity come up to do some, go over to child protection as a trainee detective. And I thought, you know what, I'll have a piece of that.
Do you have kids?
I do, yeah. At the time I had, so just to go back, within a year of being in the police, I separated from my first wife. We had a son together. He was only 1. So, yeah, I had a young kid. So, I used to do everything my dad didn't. So, I made sure all my days off, I had him, stuff like that. So, yeah, I went over to child protection, and that was an eye-opener. So that wasn't the internet stuff. That was more sort of like, abuse in the household, sexual abuse, stuff like that. But it was all interfamilial. So, your uncles, your dads, your brothers, whoever, your carers, stuff like that. And the most of the stuff I dealt with was more physical violence as opposed to sexual. So a couple of big jobs early on that sort of really opened my eyes. There's one job, first job I dealt with, this little scrawny rat bloke. He'd threw his kid at the mum. And he was just a little shit. I hated him so much. And he had pinned the dog to the ceiling with a staple gun. That was him. That was what he was about. And he was nothing, James. You wanted to kill him. But it felt like I was doing a good job. It felt like I found my role here is to, even if people, and I knew a lot of people, especially from school, that didn't like the police, they still like that. So I don't like the police, but I like what you're doing. I respect what you're doing. So you know, I started to do that for a few years, and then they got a chance for a sideways move into the, you know, into the paedophile unit, into the internet child abuse unit, and that's where things just, you know, got crazy. You know, that was the, you know, I look back on it now, and I think I spent, you know, best part of 14 years doing that kind of work, and it's a long time.
What was the first job you went into?
The first job was this. It was just after Christmas. It was the one throwing the baby. And it was the one thing that I remember about it was so mum had 2 kids, not with him, with someone else, and then she had a child with him, the one he threw the baby. And the little girl, she was a sweet little thing, and she said, I said, "Is there anything he does that you don't like?" You know, we used to interview the children, you know, on video. And he said, yeah, he always riles up a towel and he whips me with it. And she goes, he thinks it's funny, but it really hurts. And I thought, yeah, you're just a bully, mate. You're just an absolute bully. And then when mum said he pinned the dog to the ceiling once to you know, to scare the kids, I thought, fuck, like, I didn't even know these people were about, you know. Like I say, he was like, you know, 6 stone wet through, scrawny little fucker. And you just think, I think he got about like 10 months for a common assault for throwing a baby. He could have killed that baby, you know. So yeah, that was the first job I did. Another big job that I remember as well is like when I started to realise there's, you know, so much like, you know, wrong in the world. Is another bloke. I mean, the first part of it is funny. So we got called to the hospital, Luton Dunstable Hospital, and they said, "Oh, we've got this bloke here. He's coming with his child. Child's got a broken leg, covered in bruises. He says he was pushing the pushchair down the street, and 4 blokes jumped him, tried to mug him, and he cried, kicked them all off, but they managed to hurt his kid." I said, "Right, that sounds weird. That's not something you normally hear, is it?" Really? Come around the corner, and the guy's like about 20 stone, just this big, fat, sweating mess. And I thought, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm a black belt. I do this. Yeah, I kung fu kicked them all." I was like, "Yeah, of course you did." Anyway, I ended up speaking to his wife, and he had absolutely, he just used to fly in rage at the child. Thomas, his name was. He was only, you know, I think he was about 18 months. And he'd got into a rage, tried to throw him through a plate glass window. As the kid was crawling off, he'd just stamped on his leg and snapped his femur. And he's covered in bites. I used to pick him up and bite him as well. He was covered in bites, bruises. Awful job. I mean, he got 18 years, which was, you know, was a good result. It was my best sort of result at the time. I was like, yeah, you are an evil bastard. And that's when you hear these jobs like, Baby P, you know, these big jobs. But these other jobs are going on all the time, every day, all day. And it made me realize, yeah, you know, this is the work I want to be doing. These are the people I want to go after. And that's where that addiction starts, when, you know, going after these people. You know, I had no interest in robbers or people like that. It was paedophiles and child abusers, really.
Yeah, because that's the difficult thing, because I asked Ian the exact same question. He was in the job nearly 20 years and he knew the effect it was having on his mind. And I says, why would you do it then if you're a father and you know how it was affecting you? And it's a great answer. Like, he says once he went to his first job and helped save that young kid, he says, how could I walk away, James? How could I walk away?
Yeah.
Because he then knew what was going on every day.
Exactly.
So if you walk away as a father, could you live with yourself knowing what's going on and can't actually help or can't actually save kids? Like, and I respected that answer, because I did, like, it's psychotic to then not accept it, but to then have to do it and put yourself in that misery daily, every minute, every hour, the thought process, and it will live with you for the day you die at. You can't switch that off. You might have your good days, of course,
sure,
but to switch that off, and I couldn't understand when I spoke to him, why would you do it? Like, all the stuff you've told me, I don't get it. And he just says, listen, once I'd done my first job and saved that young kid, how could I walk away? Who else was going to do it?
Yeah. And you know, that's a really good point. And the thing, it becomes like, the way I saw it was like, if I just get to the end and this all stops, then I can quit. Of course, it never stops. It's never going to stop. And it's not your personal responsibility to keep going until till you burn out or till you go mental. But that's the way I saw it. I thought, you know, we'll just do one more job. We'll just keep going. We'll keep going. Because there is, you feel good about yourself because you are actually doing good. You are doing real good, and you're seeing actually making a difference. Everyone goes, "Oh, why did you join the police? I'll make a difference, make a difference." You actually can in this instance. And you know what, like, I feel like my morals are quite well set. And, and I wanted to help. I wanted to help these kids, and these families and these, horrible predators or violent men or whatever. I don't know. Does it stem from my own childhood where, my dad was a bit of a shit? Who knows? But yeah, he's right. Exactly what he says. Like, it's a really hard thing to walk away from. But deep down the damage it's doing. And you're masking that with drinking or, whatever. And that's where the problems begin.
How many people were on your team?
So initially, when I went to child abuse, there was around about 8. And like I said, that was, anything from, a kid with a bruise on his knee that's been pushed over right through to stamping on femurs and, attempt murders. Was that enough? Of course it weren't. The jobs are coming in all the time, and you're trying to firefight and trying to, pick out where to put your gunpowder, where you need to be focusing on. And that's tough. That's tough because a lot of, we worked alongside social services. A lot of people hate social services. It's quite funny because they were the only people that, the people hated more than us. So if you went out with a social worker, they'd just lay into them. And I thought, this is nice change. They're giving them grief instead of me. But they've got incredible caseloads. They're trying to sort of, so many kids should be coming off parents, but they just ain't got the foster placements, they ain't got the pair placements, and they end up going back into these households, and it's this sort of like, it's this threshold where it should be much higher. These kids should be taken out of these houses way before it gets to the stage that we're getting involved, but they just ain't the places to them. So, they're managing them on plans and stuff like this, child protection plans, going in every so often, checking, it's there's a lot of kids with families, that are living in fear, 24/7. And that's sad. It's really sad.
A lot of survivors I've had on have been abused by football coaches, priests, police, people and foster parents. Like what should be in place to then try and protect, like, people don't agree with like polygraph tests and that says they're not 100%, but anyone who works with kids should at least take one. Teachers, football coaches, like, why not take one to find out if you're attracted to kids or you're abusing kids? Like, just take the test. It's so, like, people say they're not 100% accurate, but the majority of the time they are. So you would rather someone lose their job with maybe a false result than putting them in a place of power to abuse kids. Do you know what I'm saying? Where the kids are, it's okay, these people getting 5 years, 10 years. The kids who have been abused have got a life sentence.
Absolutely.
And 1 in 3, they say, who get abused become abusers themselves.
Yeah.
Which is a very high stat. So it's a never-ending wheel. So for so many paedophiles out there, they're then abusing people who then come on abuse people themselves. And I know I've had a lot of people on says, but I would never do that. And that's great. But a lot of people don't see it that way, because if they think that's the norm, they end up going on to do it themselves. But what do you think should be in place to then try and fucking wean them out and get more to understand, like, not everybody should be working with kids? And listen, I can't be slating every priest, football coach, because people are attracted to the right work and do the right job, but it's hard to then know all the stats and figures that are coming through now that something needs to change. Yeah,
it's a really difficult one, isn't it? Because I don't think there's enough in place. There's not enough vetting. There's not enough checks. There's not enough, just getting face to face with these people, discussing why they want to do these things. And, you get a feel for someone, don't you? So if someone, for instance, is a scout leader, and why do they want to be a scout leader? What's their background? Who's their family? What's their motivation for doing that role? And I don't think there's enough of that. And then, we used to find, people in all sorts of positions of trust would then go and find themselves an opportunity to abuse kids in a role, whether that be, like you say, football coach, athletics coach, teacher, nursery assistant, whatever it was, and then, as you say, these kids are getting abused and they're let down by the system. And then it's, great, we've locked him up. What about then? Their life is, is ruined forever. So it's funny what you say about the lie detector. The police and probation are using those now.
Are they?
They are using those now. So, and I know the guy who does it. And so the only people who can train that is people in the States. So they come over, they train, but it can't be used in court. So basically what you'd have, but that's okay.
You don't mind that. It's just to get an understanding of what way you'll go.
Yeah. So interestingly, what they'll do now is, so if someone's convicted of a child sex offence, they'll have the opportunity to, to do the lie detector as part of their probation. So they'll go on there and they'll say, look, have you any thoughts of this? Have you done this? Have you looked at images? And it's used as intelligence. If they, weirdly, a lot of people, before they even go on it, they panic so much, say, all right, okay, yeah, actually, I've been doing this. And obviously, if they don't take it, because they can make it part of their conditions, that they have to take one every 6 months or whatever, or it still needs to be voluntary. They can say no, but then it's obviously going to be looked upon as suspicious.
But you know yourself, the urges, they say the mindset can't be changed. I'm always for anybody can change and this and that. Like, do you think there's enough things in place? Because I know there was a man on Twitter, I don't know what happened to him, but he used to say he had the urges but never acted on them. When he used to try and speak to families, he used to actually watch like his sister's kids and stuff. Like, it is mad that he was actually doing that, but he says he never acted on it because obviously the state of the mind. But do you think there should be more things in place? Because people who are battling addiction struggle to come forward and talk about their problems or their issues and mental health, especially men. We don't even want to talk about anything. But if you're a fucking paedophile and say you've never done anything yet, but you've got the tendencies, what's in place? Can they phone anybody, speak to anybody? Like, is there any sort of mental health lines where or there's nothing like that?
It's a good question. Where do you go from there? There is one charity, Lucy Faithfull Foundation, and it's the charity that deals with people with a sexual interest in children. People can self-refer to them, but they obviously got a duty of care. So if someone starts disclosing, obviously they're a threat to children, or they've got indecent material, then they'll refer that on to us. But you've never heard of them. Who would have heard of them? And who's going to start Googling it? If they've got nowhere to go. So you're absolutely right. There is nowhere to go. But it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because if someone does ring up and says, "Oh, just to let you know, I've got these urges. I can't control it. What do I do?" What do you do? Because when that urge becomes too much and they do something, and we kind of knew about it and we let that happen, can someone change their sort of ways? If I always just to say, like, if someone said to me, right, Paul, you can never be with women again, you can't even look at images of women again, deal with that. You might say, yeah, all right, yeah, I will, but deep down, are you gonna actually
your testosterone, your kind of
and this is the thing we saw over and over again. We'd have these image offenders who would say, I just look at it, I never masturbate to it, I've got no sexual interest, I'm curious, I'm bored, I'm depressed. I've been depressed, I've been bored, I've been curious, I've never gone on the internet and started looking at 4-year-olds naked. So they're lying to themselves, first of all, and they'd say, oh no, or I just like the female form, or every excuse you can think of. It was a pop-up, it was this, it was that. But ultimately, do these people change? And I think the worrying stat was for me is that the more they looked at it, and we're talking thousands of images and videos, that becomes not enough anymore. And then they need to get hands on. That's like, if any sort of normal bloke was looking at porn continuously, at some point he's going to want to sort of, get hands on with a woman. And this is what it was like with them. Masturbation or images weren't enough anymore, so they have to get involved. And
so that's where the problem for me, the internet comes in. Because if people are having these thoughts and then diving into it, seeing it, and then more and more's not enough, and then they'd end up raping kids. Like, the internet plays a massive thing, and it's scary how they can block your channels and delete your accounts if you're talking about COVID or lockdown. But people are sharing images of kids, and yet the fuck all gets done. That's the frustrating thing. They can clearly censor words. Same as Pornhub, one of the biggest abuse channels. It's 80%, over 80% of abuse, and people don't want their content out there. Like, it's crazy to think like how they can censor certain things but can't censor that. Like, there should be things in place, and that there can be things in place to then block their stuff out. But this is the way the world operates. They want to operate in low vibration, dark people, to keep us all fucking mentally unstable.
And the thing is, you look at, it's saturated, isn't it? It's saturated. So even something with like Pornhub or whatever, everything's like stepdaughter, stepsister, stepmom,
Brothers, sisters, mum, dad.
you know, and these people, they just need more. It to be more and more extreme. We saw this a lot. You know, it'd start with barely legal stuff. They're testing the water. Oh, I like a bit of that, and then they have to come away from the mainstream sites. And this is where the offending started. So they'd go. You remember years ago, you go on to like, I don't know, LimeTree or something, and you would do file sharing, and you'd download, I don't know, bloody latest, you know, music album or film, wouldn't you? And you download it. This is where it's all sitting. It's all sitting on these file sharing websites. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of images. And there's a market for it because it's being made. It's being shared. And the stuff on there, James, the stuff on there no one should see. And the stuff on there that I look back on now. So we, on the team, all that material had to be graded. So you've got A, B, and C. So if you, let's say, for instance, you go out on a warrant, you turn up, let's do it start to finish. You get some information. I won't say how they do it, but we'd get some information. This person is downloading indecent images at this address, right? So we'd look at who lives there, we'd go there. Let's say there's a family of 4 there, mum, dad, 2 kids. You walk in there, it'd be a nice house. You know, it wasn't, you know, nice house. Dad's a professional, mum's, you know, whatever she does. And you go in there at 6 a.m, knock the door, 6 a.m, and they were, you know, mum opens the door, you know, what's going on? What's going on? You go in there, say, right, listen, you need to listen to me really carefully, right? So we've got information that somebody at this house is downloading indecent images of children, okay? And they go, no way, no, must be a mistake, must be a mistake. And we'd be able to upset, this is not a mistake, this is factual, it's just about who's been doing it. And then I look, you know, the bloke would be there, and always had a thing, I'd say, is there anything you want to say about that? And they'd always do the same thing, they'd do a big swallow, go, right, you know, you're the man. And they'd never put up too much fight. If I come and join us, James, I said, right, I'm nicking you for indecent, you go fucking mad, wouldn't you? Mm-hmm. You'd be swinging, punching, is that? They'd just go, oh, okay. You know, and you take them away.
Is that because they've been caught before, though?
No, they've not been caught before. They've not been caught before. This would be first time straight off the bat.
And this is a family man with kids in the house?
Yeah. And this was more often than not.
What's the protocol for the kids in the house? Do they then have to be?
Nah, so he'd get nicked. Let's say, and I say he because majority of the time it is, you know, in 20 odd years, like I probably, you know, I can name sort of like 1 or 2 where females were involved, and that was normally they were being led by a male. So it's all, you know, it was always a male. So we'd lift him, take him out, take all the computers in the house, etc. And you know what? Like you didn't feel good about that because you've just ripped a family apart. You know, you've got a wife that didn't live in a double life. Wife's there, and she can't accept it. She thinks it must be a mistake. Must be a mistake. This can't be true. So we take it away. Then he can't go back there. So he's going to have to go and stay somewhere else, and he'll have obviously bail conditions not to go and be alone with those kids. But obviously you're trusting mum to be that safeguarding factor because mum don't believe it. So he'll come back and say, look, it was a pop-up, or I was downloading the, you know, Michael Jackson album, and, you know, this come up, and they'd get a lot of time with that person to convince them that they're not a paedophile, convince them that it's all a mistake. We'd start examining the computers, and you would find generally thousands of images and videos, thousands, James. And then we'd have to go through each one and grade them, A, B, or C. A would be the worst, so that'd be like penetrative sex, I say sex, rape. B would be like sexual abuse. C would just be, you know, naked children. And we would go through it and we'd watch videos, we'd grade images. And now I look back and I think, what the fuck was I doing? You know, staring, watching that. That was my day job, to watch that and grade it. And sometimes we're talking about, you know, kids of, not even kids, like toddlers, you know, and babies, you know, being raped and abused, and videos. And we just have to put them all into a package, put a file together, send it to CPS, and off they go to court. They'd rock up the court. Oh, you know, he's a previous good character. He's been depressed. They always say I'm depressed. I got drunk, you know, it's a one-off, all these things. Well, one-off, you got like 400,000 images. That's not a one-off. You got sexual interest in children? No, I haven't. Really? You know, and then, I used to say to him in interview, I'd say, would you, if you're walking down the street, would you watch an adult woman being raped? Of course I wouldn't. That's disgusting. Well, you're watching videos of children being raped. They're not being raped, having sex. No. Like a 4 or 5 year old is not having sex, and they don't want to be there. Trust me. And you are part of the problem, because where there's a demand for it, there's a supply, and they didn't get it. They just they just kept it on there, and they also say they'd go to court. Previous good character, they probably had a good job. They say, oh man, if I go to prison, like, I'm not going to be able to provide my family, all this, man, I've seen the light, I'll never do it again, Your Honour. And 99% of the time, they'd get a community order, and they'd go on the sex offenders register, and that'd be it. They'd walk out, and you think all that for that, to have videos of babies being raped and you get a community order, if you do a bit of shoplifting, if you smash the window, that's you should be in community order for, not 400,000 images.
I get 6 months from Berlin, man, for fucking driving, I guess.
But this is the thing, isn't it? This is the thing. This is where it's wrong. I remember one dude, he developed a massive stutter, and he got a walking stick, and he come into court and he was walking, he's going, and I'm like, surely no one's buying this. This guy's presenting this like, and I'm like, and they're like, oh man, Your Honour, his solicitor's like, Your Honour, he needs, my client is, he's so distressed, he can't talk, he's in a bad place, I'm like, who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? Was he doing that? Was he stuttering and, walking with a stick when he was looking at this stuff? Of course he weren't. Do you give a shit about them kids? No, don't. And this is the frustrating thing. So you put yourself looking at it, viewing it, just for someone like that just to walk away and think, yeah, whatever, I mean, that, to me, that wasn't punishment. That was just, occupational hazard for them.
Why is this sentences so lenient for paedophiles?
I think because, I'll be honest, because they don't fit into the, they are professionals. They are, doctors, school teachers, bankers, whoever, white collar workers, white middle class man, whatever, a lot of older people. So the court looks upon them as they're not a threat. The probation would do like a risk assessment. Is this person a threat? And if I sit across from you from a probation officer and I say the right things, I say, oh no, he's seen the error of his ways, he's doing this course, he's doing that. Prison will serve no purpose to him. We can manage him in the community. What do you mean manage him? He's just going to be set free and he can do what he wants again. It was rare, James. It was rare. The only couple of occasions, there was one case, it was so bad. The material was so bad and he was such an arrogant piece of shit old bloke. And when we nicked him, he was like, do you mind if I pray before you take me in? I was like, come on. And he had such bad stuff that it traumatized the team. I'm talking everything was babies, everything, and people were in a bad place looking at that and viewing that. And he'd just sit there arrogant and, almost looking down on us. And I requested that the judge sees those images, because all they get is a table with, 100,000 A's, 20,000 B's, moving images, whatever. And he'd just see that as stats, and then Mate Boy comes in, previous good character. But I said, that judge needs to see this. He needs to see what he's been looking at. Then he did get a small sentence and he went on to get caught again, So I don't think the judges, it's just there's so many of them coming through, James, so many of them. It's like a conveyor belt that they don't know what to do with them. What do you do with them? Like I said, it's an epidemic. There's just job after job after job of all ages, all professions, just looking at this stuff and downloading it, sharing it. It's incredible.
For any parent watching who's kind of naive, because a lot of parents just go through it and don't realise the extent of it. It's just, like I say, many podcasts, my daughter's not allowed sleepovers.
Yeah.
She fucking hates me for it. She's probably lost friendships through it. But as a protective father, I would rather her lose friends than me
absolutely
have anything happen to her.
Yeah.
Because I know what I would do, and every man would probably say that, but genuinely, like, these people need executed.
Yeah.
Like a bullet in the head, and then you wouldn't have as much a problem. But then again, you're committing a crime, so where's the then balance? But for any parent watching, and like I say, my daughter hates me for it, but I don't know the relationship with the mum and dad. I don't know the brothers, the grandparents, the neighbour, the delivery man. You don't know who's about, and it's difficult because you don't want to be a bad parent, but you just want to protect because of the people I speak to. And a lot of people feel the same as well with having sleepovers. Back in the day, we used to just go to people's door and ask for pieces and butter and staying with your friends and no questions asked. But then again, you don't know back then who was around either. But now again, it's just so more heightened, and it's just safety at all costs. But what is the telltale signs? Like, is there any that sticks out for any parents to be aware of and be careful of these predators?
It's difficult, isn't it? I think of like some of the ones where we had one case where he was like the community babysitter. He was a community babysitter to all the sort of single mums around there. And if you looked at him, James, you wouldn't leave your jacket with him, let alone your child. But he was like, look, I'll do it for free, all this. He was, a social misfit. He was messy. What young lad of 20 wants to be babysitting all these kids? So I would say normally you'd see alarm bells ringing there. He's a very extreme example. But I would be like I was very like you, like it sort of taints your view of the world. So I thought everybody was up to no good. If you were a scout leader, what are you doing that for? You must be a paedophile. Of course, that's not true, and you shouldn't think like that. But I think being overcautious, like you do, is the best tactic, because if anything is too good to be true, it normally is, isn't it? So if someone wants to come into your house or wants your child to sleep over with their child or whatever, and you just get a feel for someone, then I feel like that a lot of the time, and you just have to be really cautious. And I think, unfortunately, there is a lot of lazy parenting goes on now. So, like I said before, go to your room with your screen. Why has a 7-8-year-old got an iPhone 16? And they think, I've put the parental settings on it. You don't think that kid can turn them off? And there is a lot of people out there grooming kids online. So many. I'll give you like a silly example of one where, we had this girl and she was like, oh man, like I was speaking to this guy on Snapchat and he said, oh, I've got Harry Styles' number. You can have it. You're in a competition with 3 other girls. So all you need to do is send me a topless pic. Well, you can remember, these are still kids. They may give it loads, but they're so naive. So she started sending pics. Obviously, she gets a number, she rings up. Ain't Harry Styles, let's say that. But, these people have got a long time online. They're sitting at home all day, every day, targeting kids. And they know these kids want something and they're upstairs on their own with a screen. And that is the biggest thing I'd say. If anything, takeaway is just know what your kids are doing on their devices. Because there's a lot of clever techie people out there targeting your kids, and they'll tell them exactly what they want to hear. If they're not getting a lot of attention at home, they're not getting much love at home, someone will give them that online. They won't just go straight in. They'll have to groom them and get them to do all sorts of things. And you just need to be on it. You just need to be on it.
Yeah, you've worked firsthand, so you'd have seen the shock factor with the men who present themselves well with doctors or lawyers or whatever. Obviously, you go online, you've got the paedophile busters, and they're quite retarded, the guys they're catching. They're quite slow.
I'm glad you bring that up.
Quite slow and thick, and people... I wouldn't say it's a comedy show because of the crimes they've done. They're doing amazing work. These people, I know some of them personally, and they do great work, but it is a very small percentage of these people, like you say, they're very slow. They're quite... You could catch them with the things that are stupid. Do you know what I'm saying? But obviously, you've got high-end people like the doctors, the police officers, the football stars. Like, there's a lot of people who then are very more intelligent, where they wouldn't just be going online and speaking to people. Where did you see the difference of from the bottom end to the top end? They're all the same, but do you see the difference of class?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm glad you brought up the thing about the paedophile hunters. We had like a very strange relationship with them because they, sometimes it was a lot of it about self-gratification. So they liked what felt really uncomfortable for me. So they'd set up a sting, wouldn't they? I'm sure you've seen it. And then they just grill this person for like 40 minutes. The cops don't come straight away, and they just grill them. And you can see that person is, you know, either of low intellect or maybe have some special needs or whatever. Because I used to read the chat logs, James. Like anybody reading that would know that's not a kid, you know, but they'd, because of the person they were, they'd fall for it, set up the meeting and then just grill them, you know, and you're this, you're that. And what they didn't realise is the carnage that caused, because that person was then named, everyone knew them, they knew the family, and the family would have to be moved, and they were firebombing houses and all sorts. It created carnage. And they'd have like the decoy, they call them decoys. And they'd, you know, they, as you say, some of the stuff they did was all right. But then they have an enforcer gang. And the enforcer gangs were dicks, man. They were dicks. A lot of them had like, you know, they liked to be violent, liked to push people about. They were bullies. They were like doing it, you know, and they had these funny names, man. You know, they had like, you know, I can't remember now, but, you know, Guardians of the North or something like that, Guardians of the Galaxy, I don't know. But, you know, they had a role to play, but they were shooting fish in a barrel. The real hardcore, clever paedophiles, that wouldn't go nowhere near them. And as you say, they were very good at grooming. They, you know, you could sit across them, you wouldn't, you know, you'd think hey, he's all right or they're all right, you know, but they'd do it very discreetly. And they'd only come unstuck, you know, if through chance, maybe through chance, bit like, you know, some of the UC work they'd sometimes come unstuck with. We had probably the most horrific case I ever dealt with was, he wasn't in the army, he left the army, but come back to the army. And he was like doing like a guarding role at the base. And he was in a chat room that you could only get into if you were live abusing kids. So if you could prove you were abusing a child, you would be let into that group. And it was a closed group. And it was infiltrated. I won't say how, but it was. And it was a worldwide group and all these people in there. And we went out to the base to nick him, and he was like, oh, hello, you know, you hear about the car accident? You know, I'm like, did you not just hear what I said? You know, we've got evidence you've done it. And he was calm as a cucumber. And basically what he was doing, he was into pain, into like torture of his 2 children. And he used to not sell, but he'd give advice on how far you can hurt a child without doing them, you know, serious medical damage. So like injecting chili into the penis, injecting the kidneys, things like that. He had the kids tied up, and we're talking about a boy who was 8 and the girl I think was about 5. And he had all this imagery, all these videos. And do you know what, James? I sat across from him in the table, and he went no comment. And I'd seen some of the videos at that point, and I was asking him about it, and I was shaking. It's the only person ever I've been like shaking with anger. And he just smiled at me and just kept smiling at me, because he could see how it was getting under my skin. He could see how much it was hurting me, and he just enjoyed it. And he's the only person I've ever met that I thought, you are evil to the core, to the absolute core. And I found out that he worked on some army unit years ago that would go in to say like there'd been like a war zone and a village had been slaughtered, and his unit was there to clear up dead bodies. And he was a dark individual. He was dark, and he 100% had children to abuse them from the year dot. And he was, yeah, like I say, he was selling. He was, you know, advising people how far you can take it in hurting a child. So it weren't just sexual abuse; it was sadistic. And I was shaking, my hands were shaking. I had to go for a walk after the interview, and I thought, you just, like, what purpose do you serve in life? And he'll go to prison, and he went to prison, he got 28 years, but it won't bother him. It won't bother him. So he'll just go about his life. Yeah, I'll be in prison, but has he been punished for his crimes? I don't think he has.
Why are they protected in prisons?
Exactly.
Why not on the normal ones?
Let's put you.
Yeah, let's see how big you are when you're in with the big boys. I'm not saying the big, but no, for crimes and murder and drugs, they're still doing destruction themselves. Do you know what I'm saying?
I agree.
Drugs, but
I agree.
You want to be smart enough and laugh at people.
Yeah.
Go in with the fucking people who's not going to tolerate that. Let's see how tough you are there.
Yeah.
And you'll learn your lesson. Could it potentially help with the crimes and people not maybe want to act on their thoughts because they know they're getting put in?
Yeah.
And possibly because if you're a paedophile and you're getting caught and you're getting 12 months, you can change your name for 20 quid. You can fly under the radar.
Yeah.
If you're getting put in protection units surrounded by the rest of the same as you to then plan your next moves when you come out, share more images, share more videos, how you can try and beat the system again. Put them in with the fucking real cons. Put them in with the big boys who wouldn't tolerate it. You're going to get beaten to fucking death.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's plenty of people in prisons who would happily do a life sentence to keep these people off the streets. I'm not saying crime pays, but when you're seeing that sort of stuff, how do you contain yourself from not throwing punches? How do you contain yourself from not absolutely losing the plot?
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
I think back to him, not just him specifically, but I think back to him at that time, and the only way you could self-medicate was with booze. You could, you'd go home and you'd, do 18 hours, whatever, and you'd just have to start drinking. You have to start drinking, and you just try and block it out. My Jenny, who I'm married to now, I met her on the team, and she was what they called a victim ID officer, and she would say for instance in that house, she would take photos in the house of say that chair, and then that chair appears in an image. So say, oh, look, this chair is an image, so that proves this happened in this room, and it fucked her up, so we're together, but we're not dealing with it, because we've both seen it. And what got me was this guy's laughing at me, and I know he's going to be all right in prison. I know it because he grooms, he's very polite, he'll go and do the core, he'll go and do a woodwork class, he'll do this, he'll be the perfect prisoner. And I just think, I've seen what you've done. I've seen what you've done to these kids, and I know that they went off into foster care and they've got serious issues. Of course they have. Why wouldn't they? And there's good people looking after them. But how do you come back from that? How do you come back from that personally, having seen it, dealt with him, and how do you process something that can't be processed? And that's why at the time, as I said, I was drinking too much. But it was the only way. It was the only way to sort of black it out. And obviously, you just go on to the next job, you go on to the next job. But these people are haunting your dreams. I think it was a few years ago now, I woke up in the night and I thought I was having an heart attack, James. I thought I was having an heart attack. I couldn't breathe. And James was like, you can breathe because you're talking for a start. But it was a panic attack. I didn't know what a panic attack was. But it's because when you're not, I found out when at night, when you shut down, then your brain starts, the stuff you haven't processed brings it back to the front. And that is where the battles begin, and you think, shit, this darkness is consuming me. And I went to, whether you believe this stuff or not, I went to like a psychic healer. I didn't tell her anything about me, she didn't know anything about me. And we got in there, and I feel like people can feel energies and stuff like that, spirituality, whatever. And she started crying, and she goes, I can just see all this darkness, like a black, sludge inside you. And she goes, if you don't get it out of you, it's going to kill you. And she knew nothing about me, and she was just like, I can see it in your aura. I can see all this stuff you're carrying around with you. You need to get rid of it. So that, that was quite scary. But I digress, but in answer to your question, I didn't deal with it.
Were you ever concerned? Because I spoke to Ian. Do you know what his biggest concern was? He would start enjoying it. The undercover copper with all the images, because they knew with the amount of paedophiles who watch it, they start wanting more and more and more. And he was concerned, and I fucking loved the respect to that. He was concerned because he was watching it every day and seeing it every day and putting himself at the forefront, spending time with these people. He was so concerned that he would end up becoming one.
I mean, I wouldn't say, and bearing in mind that I was looking at it on a daily basis, what I would say that I was become concerned of, I was becoming desensitized. Cool. So I was downplaying stuff. I was saying, well, it's only this, it's only that. It's only a 14-year-old, it's only, she only got image Cs, it doesn't matter. Why am I excusing it? But you become so desensitized. I could eat my lunch while I was looking at it.
Did it become normalized?
Yeah.
Like just switch off cold?
Yeah. So, I'm eating my, eating bread roll and crisps while I'm grading it. That ain't right, James. That ain't right. You should not be doing that. And that is what I was becoming desensitized to it. And I was, never mind the categories A, B, and C, I was categorizing it in my own head going, well, this ain't that bad. but it is that bad, and that was the biggest thing to me, that it was just becoming the norm. It's just becoming the norm. And, as I say, I didn't really feel like I was whatever danger of becoming one of them. But another thing is it put you off sex, like, sex become dirty, and stuff like that. And it takes over everything in your life. So you're drinking more, you don't like sex, you're arguing, you're doing this. I remember once, I've got 2 dogs, but I've got one sadly passed away just before Christmas. And she was a little Romanian rescue dog, right? And I'd had her years, and she was gobby, always, yeah, but she was lovely, And one day we were out, and she gobbed off at some other dog, and I gripped her out. Didn't touch her, obviously, but at that moment I felt rage, and I could have hit her, and I thought, oh my God, like, what am I becoming? And I was irritable at home, I was snappy, and that ain't the person I was. But that's how it starts, infiltrating your whole personality and your soul, and you become someone else. And I didn't, again, it wasn't until I started understanding how the mind works and mental health is that, depression can come out as anger or rage or stuff like that. So I wouldn't say I was losing the plot, but, I wasn't far off it. I was not in a good place, which is why, I thought I need to put the brakes on this,
Were you ever surprised when you went to the door? Because like you say, everything has energy. There's a coldness around these people, there's a darkness, and you see the people on the TV, they've kind of got those glasses with like tints in them and fat, kind of grey. Because when I was in Berlin, I was on the gym pass, and we used to have to, in the mornings, it was always the paedophiles that came first.
Yeah.
But they all had maybe it's because you knew, but they just all had there was just a cold fucking horrible, the room was always cold when they came in, like it was just a feeling that these were bastards. And did you know as soon as you went in, did you get a presence, like, or did we be surprised that maybe possibly I could be wrong here?
Yeah, there was a few where you thought, have we got the right house? But generally, you got it from their reaction. The reactions were never, one of outrage or, oh man, you got it all wrong. There'd be a little bit of like, sort of, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. But generally, there wasn't enough like of this is crazy from them. But from that point in, James, they just play the system. So, one of the other things that, disgusted or really grated on me is you take them to custody and they'd go through this risk assessment. Are you okay? Blah, blah. You need this service. Do you want this? Do you want that? And they'd be going, oh yeah, I've got depression. And they'd be like just wrapped in cotton wool from the minute they're nicked to the minute they go to court. And before they'd leave custody, you say, you know how it is. Like, no one gave a shit about, if someone who, burgled or whatever. I'm not saying these are good people, but, they were pretty much written off. And what I like about you, James, is like everyone's got a backstory, haven't they? I always used to treat people, as I found them. So if they are out burgling or doing that, what's their past? Because sometimes they come from nothing. It's all they've ever known. Yeah. So, you know what? They had no chance from the start. Zero chance from the start. So, we should do our best to try and, help them, into a better life. However, these people, they would just be treated like they were the victims. In the end, what we'd have is quite a few kill themselves. So we'd go out there, we'd nick them, seize all their stuff. Next day, we'd come into work and go, oh, so-and-so's chucked himself off a car park. I had no sort of
good
emotional reaction to that.
Yeah.
But they'd all be panicked. Right, what did you say to him? What did you do? Where did you take him? What is it like? And you would be under the scrutiny for it. So within 24, if someone kills themselves within 24 hours of like police contact, there has to be like an investigation. And then you suddenly start feeling like the bad one here. Like the family would turn on you. The higher ranks would turn on you, going, well, what did you do? What did you say? Where did you take him? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? So look, he made his choices. And the only reason he's chucking himself off a car park is probably because he knows that, from here on in, it's just going to get worse for him. So do you know what? It might be the only noble thing he's ever done. So they would do that. So then they were paranoid about it, James. So they'd like go, right, okay, if you've taken all his devices off him, he can't contact no one. Let's get him a phone. Let's get him a pay-as-you-go phone. What other offence do you know that where they give you a phone when you left custody? If you're worried, give someone a ring. We'd have to refer them to men. We'd have to ring them the next day. How are you feeling? Like, it went against everything in me to ring these people up. And obviously they'd play up to go, oh man, I feel so depressed. I can't believe, you know. And this was the thing. We were tripping over ourselves to make sure they were all right. Who was doing that for the victims? You know, they were getting the care. They were getting the attention. And these were, you know, horrible bastards, you know, nasty people that, you know, that are there to cause harm and destruction, rip their own family apart. They've, you know, possibly abused kids. We dealt with first generation when they're taking images of their own kids, when they're abusing their own kids. And I'm bringing him up, asking him if he's all right. It's madness.
How long were these people doing these crimes for? Because obviously when you get caught and they say, oh, it's my first time, but
yeah.
Is there more to it? Have they been doing it 10, 20 years and their time has just caught up with them?
I think so, yeah. I mean, some people got caught quickly. You know, like I said, there was a system, there was some systems in place that could detect some of this file sharing going on.
But that's good, that.
Yeah, that's
you know
good.
That helps save a lot of kids.
Yeah, that does. And that's a...
But then the images are already there, so the damage has already been done.
Yeah,
really.
and a lot of it comes in from Eastern Europe, from, you know, from Southeast Asia. You know, we'd have jobs with live streaming from Southeast Asia where, you know, they'd be live streaming and these people would pay to be on the live stream and tell the mum what to do to the kid next. Horrific.
What was that?
So let's say somewhere like we'd have jobs where they're out in the Philippines, there'd be like a remote village and these people got nothing. So mum and dad got nothing. So they'd find out that a way to make, you know, good money is to abuse their kids on a live stream for money. So they would set up they'd have a, you know, a big desktop computer and a room, and they'd advertise a live stream, and loads of people would start joining it, and they'd pay a fee to be in there, and then to pay extra fees to say, right, I want you to do this next, I want you to do that next. And that, like, imagine a mum doing that, but you know, they were making more money in one session than they're doing a year. So they saw that as a, I don't know, like as a way to, you know, to survive. I don't know, but that was a big problem. So, you know, I mean, it's getting better now. They go into the villages and they try, you know, show awareness and try and crack down on it. But so we're not in control of what happens in the Philippines. We're not in control of what happens in Russia, in Eastern Europe. So that's difficult, you know, but it's coming in constantly. So it's like, you know, how do you can't stop the internet, you can't stop it, it's coming in. It's how we try and, you know, stop the people that want the supply.
So you have no jurisdiction obviously outside the UK, but can you then find out if it's people in the UK watching it?
Yeah, so we deal with the ones that were, you know, so we deal with the ones that are, you know, watching and paying. So usually the way that would happen is the you know, let's use Philippines as an example, they would raid the village, they'd seize the computer, and then they would pass that over to, like, you know, the NCA, and then they would download it and then find out who was watching these videos, who was paying for them, get the card details, etc. And then we'd go and lift them. And then they'd come, oh, I was curious, I was depressed, you know, like, come on.
Obviously, listen to this, you know it's bad, but how bad is it?
Horrific. And I don't think, you know, I think generally people don't really know, do they? They don't know that, you know, 1 in 4 houses got a paedophile in it. They don't know that there's these, like, day in, day out, these warrants are going on. People are getting lifted all the time. Hundreds of thousands of videos, hundreds of thousands of images. You know, like, it is out of control. The police can't keep up with it. They can't stop it, it would seem. They're just firefighting it. You know, they're catching the people that are sort of get caught through, you know, ways. I was talking to a UC, or they're downloading off a site that's being monitored or whatever. But there's thousands of others that ain't getting caught. And that's why, to me, it's very scary. It's very scary. It's scary if you've got young kids. It's scary if, you know, that you're sending them out there into the big world. It's, as I said, it's an epidemic. It's an epidemic, and it's only getting worse.
How do parents protect their kids then? Because there was a paedophile get interviewed when he came out of prison in America, and he said, who do you target, or who don't you target? And he says, I wouldn't target a family who I knew the father was a threat.
Yeah.
So he used to target single mothers or weak fathers. Like he says, I would never target kids who the fathers was a threat.
No.
cowards. So what do you think should be more how the, like, you don't, again in life, man, it's like, can you be too overprotective? But you fucking need to be.
Yeah.
And that's the sad reality, especially in the UK now as well, with the things happening here. But how can parents be more protective for their kids to then try and eliminate anyone getting any sort of inside,
I think,
knowledge and trying to groom the kids?
the biggest thing for me is knowing what your kids are doing, knowing what they're doing. I know that's, you know, that's a sort of like quite a basic statement, but a lot of parents don't know what their kids are doing, what they're doing in their rooms, what they're doing with their mates, what they're doing at school. They're just not aware of what's going on. And it's easy. It's an easy option, is it, just to give your kids a tablet, a phone or whatever and let them crack on. But if you don't know what they're looking at or what they're doing, then there's potential. And it comes down to, like you said, with, you know, with what the paedophile says, most of these paedophiles, they'll target what we'd call like broken biscuits. So they ain't gonna target the kid who's, you know, got the high self-esteem, doing really well at school, comes from a really, you know, supportive family, mum and dad, supportive, taking them to clubs, you know, leading a good life. They'll support the broken biscuit, the kid doesn't get any attention at home, that's, you know, is maybe a little bit poor, that is, you know, is emotionally struggling because they don't get love from mum and dad. They're the ones they're going after, because they're the ones they can easily groom and manipulate and control. So, you know, I think it's a society problem, isn't it? Because, you know, there's so much poverty in this country. The services are not there, sports services, no youth clubs no more. You know, we could go on all day, couldn't we, really? But it's a society problem that's, you know, that you've got kids running wild on the estates, doing crazy stuff. No one gives a shit, stabbing each other, all that. Like, it's such a problem. But I think for the like top 1% who just sit at the top, like you say, the governments, you know, the people, you know, they don't even know this world goes on, because it doesn't matter to them. It's at ground level that where all the sort of problems are. And, you know, unless there's going to be significant funding, government putting funding into, you know, making this society a better place, then it's going to be really difficult.
I've done a podcast with an amazing woman called Barbara O'Neill. She wrote the book The Hospital, and she says there was a checklist. It's mad, because they said that she was a fantasist, and it never came out to 20 years later that she was telling the truth. It was about Aston Hall. And the evil doctors, they were experimenting on the kids, MK Ultra, abusing the kids. But she said they used to have a checklist. They used to get kids from the broken homes, addictions, sign them off as crazy. These kids ran away every week, went to the police station found out they were crazy, took them back to get more abuse. Like, and she says it was high people in big suits on, big cars, going up, picking the kids up, going away for a couple of hours, bringing them back. Like, it's so mad to to think that kids go through that. Thankfully, like, I came from a rough area, but my mum and dad were on it, and kind of, but you just didn't know. You don't know how lucky you are if you've not went through that, and the percentages of kids being abused now is going through the roof.
And like I say, it's an epidemic, and I think people are getting worse. You know, like you said, we've just taken it back to, people need to get that high, to get that buzz. They need to be more and more extreme, more and more like sadistic, more and more violent, more and more, you know, as extreme as it can get. 'Cause, you know, these pedophiles, you know, they will look at stuff, and then that becomes too tame, and then they'll just want it to be worse and worse. And then there's people out there who will feed that, like I say, babies, you know, pain, torture, whatever it is, and they're getting off on it. You know, has that always been the case, or has the internet been able to bring that to people's homes so it's easily accessible? That dark web, easy accessible. You can buy drugs on it. You can buy, you know, you can get, you know, abuse images on there. You know, you can hire all sorts of things. So whilst that's out there, you know, it's really difficult to stop. And more people seem to be just thriving on it. And what I will say, James, is like, you know, there is no like sort of, there is a generalization. You get a lot of sort of, you know, social misfits, you know, they're into their, you know, World of Warcraft, they sit at home, you know, and they don't ever go out, and they're just on a computer. Yeah, there is them lot, and we think, you know, I wouldn't trust you as far as I could throw you. But then there's the doctors, you know, then there's the cops. Well, I had one cop, he worked with me for a while, not on that team, a different child protection team. And he said to me once, he goes, how do you catch people like for images? And I told him, because obviously he's a cop. And he still got fucking caught. And you're like, fucking, well, didn't you listen to me? But he got caught in a load of images, and you think, and everyone's like, him? Because he goes under the radar, and there's so many people like that, so that when you go to the doctors or when you go to, wherever you're talking to this person, you don't know what they're doing or what they're up to. And that is the scary thing. And it makes you very, very cynical, I think, of the world. You think everyone's bad, everyone's evil, everyone's, child sex offender. And that's not the way to look at the world. There's so many good people doing good things. And, there's more good than bad, I think, but it skews your view of life massively.
Makes you paranoid to everything.
Yeah.
Look at the doctor, the American gymnast doctor. Did you ever see the documentary on him? He was the gymnast, the biggest sports in the Olympics, always winning golds. He was abusing all the girls who were coming in, putting them in compromising positions and doing certain things, but pretending it was good for them. But it wasn't for many years later. Yeah. He get caught. I think he got like 100 odd years. Madness.
Yeah.
And that was another thing. Like, were you ever concerned? Because when you do know, it's the doctors and the police and the judges and lawyers, it's everywhere. But because if you want to abuse kids, then you're going to be a scout or a football coach. But were you ever concerned that it could have been somebody in the same team as you?
Yeah.
Because they're getting to see free images, they're getting to get their wicked ways, and I'm doing God's work. Was there ever a concern?
I would say there's at least two people in my service where I thought, I'm not sure you're here for the right reasons. And both of them were moved on, but I'd say one certainly, was a worry, because they come in early before anyone got there. They're straight on the computer. You come in, they've been there since 7, looking at images. Think that's strange, and just their ways, their mannerisms. You thought, what is your motivation for being here? And it'd be the best job to be in, wouldn't it? It'd be the best job to be in because you got it free, you got it on tap.
Pass.
Yeah, and you can probably put it onto a USB or whatever. So. That you're right. Yeah, it's that. It's the enemy within, I guess.
Was there certain age brackets? Was there any young kids like 18, 19?
Yeah,
doing it, or was it like maybe people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, all just different ages?
All different. Right up to people in their 70s and early 80s. Still giving it once. Yeah. Oh man, like you just think, I know. There's one guy, like he had like a fucking cabinet full of meds. Cabinet. Jay, putting all his meds to take with him in his bags, and you think, like, are you still downloading this shit? What's wrong with you, man? Like, come on. Yeah, but then, some kids, even like 15, 16, 17, they're looking at it. They're looking at 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, because they're normally they were the young kids that really socially awkward, could only like engage with kids younger than them, so that was where their sexual interest would go. But no, right across the broad range of ages, didn't matter. But yeah, some of the old dudes like, fucking hell, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's.
Did you ever come across like human trafficking and stuff?
Not massively. I mean, human trafficking is a big problem, especially from we'd deal with a lot of like Eastern European girls that would be brought in to work in brothels and sort of kind of tricked into working for brothels, but most of them would probably be of legal age. Some of them maybe a little bit younger, but it was a different kind of team that dealt with that. But we did a few warrants on that, but it'd mostly be they'd bring the Eastern European girls in, so they'd promise a better life, and then they'd be holed up in a house in Luton.
What about satanic stuff? Did you ever come across any like that devil worshipping kind of sick stuff?
No, I mean, only the job I told you about with the bloke in the army. I mean, he was sadistic. I mean, I don't think it was anything to do with like sort of devil worshipping, but it was just pure evil. I think like people can kind of say, I'm in it because I'm a devil. I'm in it, but it was just people's sexual interest. That's all they lived the double life. They could be two very different people. And that's the scary thing. Like you would not know you were sitting next to someone. And as I will keep going back to it, is that there was a big thing of like, these people, they're just image offenders. They're just image offenders. They're not a threat. Come on.
Is that where it starts?
Yeah, that's where it starts. And people just supplement. They're abusing. We would find them for images, but when we went in and spoke to the children say, oh yeah, dad takes a picture of me, or dad does this to me, or dad does that. So that happened so many times. And then it would start as an image, but then we'd find out, that what was going on in that family home was horrific sexual abuse of that child and the siblings, and even, you know, kids from around, you know, friends would come over, you know, use the, you said you don't let your child have sleepovers, anything like that. You know, I had a job where, you know, he was fascinated by his son's friend. And his son's friend would come over and swim for a sleepover. He'd buy him gifts and that, groomed him, got him a little job, part-time job, and started sexually abusing him, you know. So it can happen to anybody. It can happen anywhere. And you just have to have eyes in the back of your head, and you need to be switched on. If you're a parent, you need to be switched on and know what your kid's doing, and protect them, James, because, you know, these kids are naive and they'll fall for all sorts of things.
Yeah, but you see now, like people in hotels and, like you say, kids having sleepovers, it's not just a case of the parents abusing the kids. They've got cameras and and the showers and the toilet, and the rooms. Like, that's another fucking concern. You can buy so much technology now. Like, it's not just a case of you see people putting cameras in dressing rooms. Like, where does it stop?
No, we used to deal with like a few voyeurism jobs. I found them weird. Like, you know, one where you put a camera in the toilet, and it was just like people going to the toilet at an awkward angle. And I thought, like, you know, what are you getting out of that? You know, it's just so strange. But yeah, you know, setting up cameras. You know, you can go on to eBay now, buy these little spy cameras, little remote USB cameras, and, you know, and do as you will. You know, and there's a lot of people. Like, where does it stop? Where does it stop? How do you prevent that? And like you say, you know, your daughter might think, you know, you're being paranoid, but with good reason. With good reason.
There's a lot of the paedophiles who had kids abusing their own kids as well, or did they give them or leave them alone?
No, a lot of them abuse their own kids because it's what it was. You know, what I found really strange is there was quite a few paedophiles that would have a child for the sole purpose of abuse them. I had one man, he was clearly gay, and he had married a woman who looked quite manly. He started to abuse both his children. So he got caught through sharing images of him abusing his child, and he was getting the baby used to being naked around him. And he had one of the images was him. He'd get him out of the shower, bath him, and then he'd be naked as well, and he'd place his penis on the baby and take pictures and stuff like that, put it on his lips, stuff like that, horrendous stuff. So he's getting that child used to those things. Getting that child grows up from only ever knowing this is what dad does. It must be normal. And the other son was he was in a really good school, and he never disclosed. We knew dad abused him at some point. Knew it. Never disclosed. And it was when I was going through the images, I finally found a picture of him raping him. And even then he wouldn't say dad, because dad obviously had gone to him that all those years and said, look, you know, I'll go to prison, I want to believe you, blah, 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 you know, through fear. But he had obviously had both of those children with the sole purpose of having kids to abuse, because he left the daughter alone, didn't touch the daughter, no interest in the daughter whatsoever, just the two boys. And what is your mindset where you think, I'm going to have a child, and from the minute they're born, and there was pictures also of him hooked up to tubes, this baby, because he was premature, you know, and done well, had survived 3 months premature, and then you think, right, we're over that scare now the sort of fun begins. Like, how can you comprehend that mindset? How you're chilled, you're meant to protect your children, but yeah, is
there ever things in place for like convicted paedophiles not to have children?
No.
Is there no law?
No, so there's no law, but what they will do is, say for instance, you know, let's use him as an example. He was to come out of prison, meet someone else, and then that woman become pregnant. There would be an ultimatum to mum, either she gets rid of him, or the bloke, not the child, or if he's going to stay around, that child's coming off you. You know, so, but that's if they kind of know about that going on. Yeah. So they have to be closely monitored. So if they can't stop them having children, but if they're going to be around, then the child should theoretically come off mum and go into care, which is shit for the kid as well, isn't it? But if you're a mum and you know that, because there'll be disclosure given to mum, your mum, if mum didn't know who he was, the social service go around and say, look, just to let you know, he's a convicted, paedophile. He's sexually abused a child in the past. You cannot have a child with this man. You know, you cannot be around him. He is a threat, a real incredible threat to your child. You've got some decisions to make, because if you don't, we'll make them for you.
How is it interviewing these people to get answers? And do you ask them, like, there's other people, do you have friends, do you go through their chat logs to see who else to contact? Like, does it connect to everyone else? Because there must be, do they do it secretively, like it's just themselves, or are they passing it on where it's like obviously paedophile ring?
Yeah, some are, you know, a lot of them are in conversation with other paedophiles and sharing with images with other paedophiles. A lot of them like to share fantasies, stuff like that. Some of them will say they've got kids that are abusing when they haven't, you know, stuff like that. So, you know, we'll forensically download a computer. We did, and then, you know, we would go through that with them and ask them, you know, questions about that, about where they got it from, why they're saying these things. One of the things that, you know, always astounded me is reading chat logs, James, reading chat logs and reading this absolute, you know, horrific material out to people where, you know, they'd talk about all sorts of sick fantasies, you know, and they'd sit there and, you know, they'd either say no comment, or they would just, like I say, they would fall back on the excuses of boredom or depression or poor me. I would have never done it. It was just fantasy. You know, so I used to quite enjoy the interviews. Enjoy, you know, challenging these people, making these people feel uncomfortable, because the good thing is a lot of these people weren't used to being in a police station. They weren't used to being in the criminal justice system. So they were uneasy. They were out their comfort zone. So they didn't know what we could do. They thought the minute we nicked them at the house, they wouldn't be seeing the light of day for 20 years. Fortunately, that's not the case, but they didn't know that. So actually, I always saw it as a way, the more uncomfortable they could feel, the more on the back foot it was getting something back for those kids, because, you know, they took gratification from children being raped. And I would point that out to them over and over again, and they wouldn't have it.
Do they know they're unwell? Do they know they're sick in the heads? Do they know they need help? There's no help.
No.
But do they know, like, this is wrong, or are they just oblivious and think it's normal?
It's not them. It's because, you know, like I say, I could probably 5% would say, yeah, okay, I've got, you know, a problem, I've got a sexual interest. The rest of them would just deny it and say, like I say, they'd just come up with some, either it was a pop-up, it was a one-off, I was curious, it was a mistake, you know, it was stupid, whatever, but I'm not that person. I'm not. You got to believe me, you know, and you think, yeah, right, you know, so to me, they're the most dangerous people, because they don't see they've done anything wrong. You know, they don't see them doing wrong. So, you know, I'm just, you know, I'm a victim of circumstances here. You know, you've got the wrong man, you know, like it was just a mistake. And that was the main thing people used to say, you know, it was just, I was just curious or bored or depressed or pissed or whatever, you know. So yeah, that's scary.
Did you ever get the wrong person? Or someone was accused or dragged in?
Yeah, once actually. Because the data was so good, it rarely happened. But once there was a bit of miscommunication, and, you know, we put that right quickly. But generally we got, you know, it was spot on. And like I say, the weird thing is that the family would turn on you. You know, more often not, you know, we'd become the enemy. You know, and because you know what? Yeah, we've ripped this family apart. You know, no one wants to know their husband's looking at this stuff. But, you know, we would become the enemy, and, you know, mum would refuse to believe it. They would groom him into thinking it was, like I say, just a one-off or stuff like that. So, yeah, that was difficult. And seeing families broken and pulled apart is not a nice feeling. You know, I remember going in before Christmas, things like that. You'd have to, because you say, look, this kid's going to be home at Christmas. Dad's looking at this. Did I feel good about myself going in there and ripping that family apart? Of course I didn't. I always felt like I was a sponge, James. So I would take on all mum's trauma, all the kids' trauma. I'd interview the kids, I'd interview him, and you're just taking it on like a sponge, taking in all this negativity and just taking it on and trying to manage it, trying to be nice about it, trying to be, you know, so it's going to be all right. This is how we're going to do it. This is how we're doing. But ultimately, like, you know, you can't save everybody, can you? You can't manage that.
Were the kids so traumatized that they used to stick up for
the
abuser as well? Because I've read and I had people on who says that happened also, where they actually stick up for them.
Yeah.
There's a kid at 12, I think, and he believed it loved his abuser.
Yeah, 100%. They would, like, a lot of them would deal with fear. So they'd say, look, if this day ever comes, you know, I love you, and, you know, dad will be taken away, and then you won't have any money, and mum will be upset, so you never tell nothing. It's our little secret, all those things. And they've had years of grooming that child. And don't get me wrong, like, it wasn't all bad. So, you know, there was the abuse, but around that abuse, maybe they were a good dad. You know, they were taking them out, they're buying them nice clothes, they're doing that. So life was all right. They just become accustomed to that part of their life, which was horrible, but they could sort of kind of deal with that because the rest of life was good. So when we'd come in, you know, they'd think, well, I must protect dad. I must protect dad. Like, you know, like the domestic violence cases where, you know, they'd fall on the side of the abusive partner. So that was difficult because you could see what was going on, you know, and you could see, you know what's happened in that house, but they wouldn't tell you. And some of them never did. Some of them never did. And, you know, and that's difficult too. Because it's so screwed up for their little heads, isn't it? You know, it's so screwed up. The one I was saying about where he had the 2 kids to abuse them, and he had raped the older son who never told us. He came to court to watch dad get sentenced. He got about 19 years or something. And he was just cold to it. He was just cold to it. You know, like, that's your dad being sentenced 19 years. And he was just emotionless. And he was an emotionless kid. Because I suppose that's how you got to survive, haven't you? You've got to almost detach from reality, you know, and this is the damage that these people are causing, absolute carnage they're causing, you know, so they go off to prison and, you know, they go and do their woodwork class and stuff like that and watch Sky TV and go to gym. And this kid's back at home, as you say, with a life sentence.
What's in position for the kids? Obviously, they have counselling, but is there much things in place to help the kids, or are they just left on their own to deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, there is a little bit of counselling, and there's, you know, they're supported by social services, but ultimately, once the dust settles, you know, everyone goes their separate ways and they're left to pick up the pieces as a family. And that's where then kids then go on to, you know, abuse drugs, abuse other kids, you know, become violent, whatever. I think that, you know, there needs to be a lot more support for that whole family, actually, for mum, for kids, how to come back from that, how to move on from that, because it's life changing. Because, you know, it's something they probably never saw coming, and suddenly it's ripped her up. Mum doesn't know how to deal with it. She's been living. The thing that got me is, like, I met quite a few mums where they were like, I can't believe I let this go on under my roof. Like, this was going on under my roof, and they feel horrendous guilt. But they couldn't have seen it coming. You know, the dad was very clever the way he did it, very manipulated mum, he manipulated the kids. And they had a lifetime of, like, absolute guilt and trauma that happened under their watch, you know. And, you know, how do you kind of offset that? Say, look, you know, I know it's bad, but, you know, you just need to focus on the child now and you know, move on and try and be there for each other. But yeah, like, how, as a mum, how do you deal with that? Knowing that your husband, the person you love, person you trust, person you put your kids with, has you know, has betrayed you in such a way that is unforgivable.
Was there many, I know he says there was only a few at the start, but how many women were involved in this as well? And were they threatened from their partners?
Yeah, very few. I mean, we dealt with a handful, but they were normally people that were in a bit like the sort of DV. They were sort of someone that was like a, you know, a low self-esteem, low income mum with a couple of kids struggling. They'd be targeted by someone and then say, you know, I want you to do this. I want you to take this. I want you to do this. It'll make me happy. I won't go. I'll give you money, etc. So they were complicit in it. It's no excuse, is it really? It's still, they should say, actually, you know, take your money and go. But there was a couple of occasions, yeah, where you'd have a mum that sort of just went along with it for a better life, for want of a better word, really. And yeah, I mean, we had another one as well who was, she worked at a nursery. Again, this is where I say the targeting comes up. She worked at a nursery. He got in with her, and he was taking pictures. She was taking pictures at the nursery. She was doing the changing in the changing room on the changing mat, taking pictures for him under his instructions. Still no excuse, is it? Like, she at some point she thinks, hang on a minute, this ain't right. I need this. This needs to stop. So, you know, I've got no sympathy for her, but very few. And certainly I didn't come across any ones that were doing it, you know, just off their own back.
When did it come on top for you? When was the, obviously every day is a low day,
Yeah.
it's negative. Obviously you're trying to get the reward of catching them and put them in prison to protect them. But when did it come on top? When did it really affect your mental health? When did it really, you had that moment of, what am I doing?
Yeah, I think it was, like I said, I had a panic attack, and I sort of kind of moved on from that. And I thought, it's just a blip in the road. I knew deep down that I was getting worse and I was going under. And then, like I say, the thing with Dancer, the dog, when I gripped her up, I was, I had this great relationship. I was due to get married, but I was destroying that by being irritable, and moody and irrational. And I thought, this goes one or two ways. Like, either I stop and because what had happened is I got promoted. I then this is the thing, James, and you get it with the others, the undercover cop you went. I got promoted. I went to detective sergeant, and I went off to another team, and it was a team that dealt with offenders for like burglaries and thefts and robberies, right? And an opportunity come up to go back to child protection as a DS, and it drew me back. I should have never gone back. I was like, I've got to go back. That's where I need to be, not here dealing with it. I need to be there, which was like career, it was career suicide, because it's the last place. So I kind of almost like lied to go back there. I said, no, I'm fine. I can, this is where I want to be. I knew it was a mistake, but I felt that was, now I can run the team. I can do this. I can help the officers. But it became even, so now I wasn't dealing with it firsthand, but I was managing all the jobs, managing all the risk. And you had narcissistic bosses that only cared about their sort of promotions, and I like to think that I looked after people and stuff like that. So it was just all coming to a big build up, a big crescendo of pressure. And I thought, I'm ready to break here. And there was a couple of times I even admit, I thought, would I be better off dead? Would I be better off dead? And that is where I thought, shit, man, I've got a problem here. I've got a problem here. And the only way I can, I'm self-medicating with booze. I'm on a road to destruction. And for what? In the end, who's that going to benefit? Because I've done it for 20 years, maybe it's time to step away and try and heal. And I thought the minute I walked out of there, James, that I'd be all right. And actually that's where the problem started. Because to the point where I thought, I need to go back. Because at least if I'm there, I'm not feeling like this. I'm in limbo here. I'm not, my work-life balance suddenly got better. I'm at home more, got more time to think. But actually I was just like, I was just like a mess. I was like having these horrific nightmares, nothing to do with child abuse, but just horrific nightmares. Wake up screaming, dreamed I'm back in the police, not knowing where I was or who I was. And I thought that, like I said, a couple of times I started getting so low, I was thinking, is it better? I'm not here. All I do is upset Jenny. And I thought, God, I need to get help. I need to get doctors. I need to get help. And, I need to kind of tackle this, or it's just the darkness will consume me. It will consume me.
It's mad. It reminds me of like Craig Harrison. He was obviously different fields, but he was a sniper. Killed over 80 people. Sniper, doing God's work, he thinks, fighting for his country. Yeah. Come back, mental health's gone. Can't handle life.
No.
But he was discharged, but he felt more at peace in the war zone killing people than they did actual in peace. Yeah. So even though your head's full of misery and pain, you want to go back into it because
then you're focused on
it feels normal.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And that's actually really, it's a really unhealthy sort of, place to be, because if the only place you can find sanctuary is in that sort of darkness, then there's something really wrong. So you can't just unwind and get rid of it overnight and it's done. Great, I'm all right now. You need to unpick it, process it, and learn to live with it. Because what I found out is that the job didn't give a shit. The job didn't do, we used to fill a questionnaire in every 6 months, say how we're feeling, how we're sleeping, stuff like that. That was it. But actually, we should have been looked after. We should have been looked after, because we were dealing with such darkness day in, day out, that no one should be seeing or doing. And if they are, then they need to be looked after. And that care wasn't there. That you were almost like, you were just another number. You were doing a job, and as long as the stats were good, the arrest stats were good, the conviction stats were good, everyone was happy. And actually, that's not what it's about. And I am bitter. I am quite bitter about the way I was kind of treated by the organisation. And after 21 years, I walked away. No one tried to get me to stay. It was just like, yeah, whatever, And I thought, not that I want people begging or pleading, but I thought, God, all that years of service, and you just let me walk out the door, and gone and forgotten about. And I thought, You know, you give a lot, and you don't get much back, and it done irreparable damage. Hopefully, you know, thankfully, I'm dealing with that and processing that and trying to move on from that. But, you know, for ages, I couldn't watch any police program. Not to do anyway, I fucking can't stand in police programs, but, you know, Interceptors or fucking all that shit. But I couldn't watch any police dramas because I just, you know, my leaving card, didn't open it for 18 months, couldn't look at it. So I always couldn't accept it. Because once I looked at that, it was over. You know, I lost my identity, I lost my purpose in life. What am I doing now? What am I good for? You know, and these are all the dark thoughts you have. Like, you know, I've given up. I'm a quitter. I've quit. I should have carried on going. You know, I've let those kids down. Whatever it is, you know, I have all these intrusive thoughts, and that is what I wasn't prepared for. That's what I wasn't prepared for, and that is difficult to this day. But you know, we're getting there.
Do you have any regrets with it?
I shouldn't have done it for as long as I did. I should have moved around. I should have gone and done something different. I should have gone something totally different. But like your man said, like, how could you do something different? Because that shit is addictive when you're getting those sort of people and you feel like you're doing some good. But I should have recognised, but I should have been made to recognise there should be a tenure on them sort of roles. Just say, right, done your 5 years, you're up, you're off, go and do something else. But it wasn't, you're just allowed to rumble on, you know, and that, I regret the damage that that's caused, you know, and that I can't get that back. But, you know, you can only move forward, can't you?
Yeah.
There's no, you know, there's no future in the past. You can only move forward, proud of what you did, but try and not dwell on that.
Yeah. Because look what you done, man.
Yeah.
You done what no one wants to do.
Yeah.
You save kids.
Yeah.
You put fucking paedophiles behind bars. You had to sit with the worst of the worst. I could sit across from a killer and end up friends with him.
Yeah.
And I think, you know what, you're sound because you've learnt from your mistakes. You've admitted your
Yeah,
guilt.
yeah, yeah.
I done it. I shouldn't have done it. I was young. I broken home. No excuses. You've done what you've done.
Absolutely.
But they can then change, go to prisons and then help people. These people don't admit it. They don't change.
No.
So you went in face first, speaking to these people, saving kids, having to listen to it, seeing fucking dogs. Like, that would have broke me.
Yeah.
That would
yeah.
have broke
I know.
me. So you done it, so you should be proud of yourself. People will understand and watching this, listening, going, man, that guy's a good fucking guy.
Yeah.
You can just tell your demeanour, your presence, your sound, you know what I'm saying? You can see you battle with it, but you can also see that deep inside, you know what you done, you had to do.
Yeah.
You were dealt those cards.
Yeah.
Because not many people could survive it.
No,
You know what I'm
thank
saying?
you. I
So-
appreciate that. And you know, like and what I do want to say, it's not all darkness. Like, you know, it's not all darkness.
Yeah.
You know, there was some sort of, you know, there was a lot of fun and laughter around that. I don't mean at that, but you had to use dark humor. You had to have a laugh. You saw some funny things. You know, what I did realize is that men will fuck anything, like mineral, fish, animal, sofa, fridge, anything. Like, I saw videos, James, where people were fucking all sorts of things, you know, like, and I think, it's like, Jesus Christ, man, what are you doing? You know,
Shag in the fridge?
yeah, shagging the fridge. They'll stick their cock in anything. And I was like, that shit used to make me laugh. So I think, then you sit opposite them, and I used to think, you know what I've seen. I know where you put your dick, you know, and these were like quite like some of the most kinkiest, fucked up people were like people in like, you know, lawyers, judges, you know, bankers, people in like really high power positions, amount of high powered, you know, people in roles who like to be spanked, you know, who like to be, you know, hung upside down and have their balls sort of, you know, whipped and stuff like that. So it astounded me what people are into sexually. So, you know, some of that you have to think, fucking hell, you got to laugh at that.
Yeah.
But
Laughter's what gets you through the pain.
absolutely.
That's a medicine. That's a
Yeah.
therapy.
Yeah.
What do you think of like the kinks? Like I say, people behind closed doors, you're not harming anyone. Do
No.
what the fuck you want.
Yeah.
But a lot of the people I've interviewed, like dominatrix,
Yeah.
and they say it's a lot of high end people who've got
Yeah.
too much money,
Too much
kinda-
power.
Yeah, they want to kind of take away that
That's
power.
right.
But like men dressing up in nappies and stuff, like that is strange as well. Like people getting whipped and chained or whatever,
Yeah.
like threesomes, or do what the fuck you want. But it's the dressing up as a baby, because there must be something
Yeah.
in there that enjoys that's quite strange to me.
Yeah, in a nappy.
Yeah.
Nappy, yeah, sort of our nappies, had a nappy change. Yeah, we saw a fair bit of that. And that's worrying. Like animals, well, a lot of people wanted to be animals, you know, drink from the dog bowl, wear a collar, you know, bark, you know, just think, fucking hell, like, where does that come from? Like, you know, we can all be a bit like, you know, crazy and kinky, but Jesus Christ. You know, like, come
I
on.
had a dominatrix where the man wanted her to shite in the bowl.
Yeah.
And for him eat it.
Yeah.
Like that is no matter maybe is the kink just the word to then deflect away, but that ain't normal.
No.
Do you know what I'm saying? That's fucking dark stuff, that. And then they're sitting in their high-end jobs,
yeah.
giving demands and government telling you what to do.
Yeah, you know, we have one like that actually. This girl turned up at the police station one day and no one knew what to do. She said, look, basically, I've met this bloke and he said, look, you know, just to let you know, I'm really into shit. He goes, all I want you to do is once a week shit in a bag and leave it on the doorstep, ring the vet and just leave. At that point, I'd be like, you know what? Like, maybe we've got different views here. You know, thanks for no thanks. But she liked him, so she goes, "Oh, well, I guess, you know, it's a bit weird." But so she started shitting in a bag, and you know, he'd take it, rub it in himself, and all this.
Why did she tell you though?
Well, so
Was that another bit of a kink?
Yeah, so that was going on, and she was like, "Man, this ain't great, but I can deal with it."
But if why is that a police thing then?
It wasn't. But then what happened is that they're having sex one day, and he started rubbing it into her. So he, without her knowledge, he'd picked it up from the side and rubbed it on her body, and she was like, you know. So he went a step too far. But yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Where does it end though?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like you said, people who watch I'm not saying people who have get kinks then go down.
Yeah, no.
Pedophiles, but if their mind is warped like that, how do they then keep raising the bar?
This is what I talk about. It's this need for more, which is why on these, you know, these normal, I say normal, but you know, like the mainstream porn sites, everything has got like a little bit of a twist to it now, you know, like step this, step mum, dad, babysitter, you know, non-consensual, whatever it is, like anal this, anal that. We talk to kids, man, and they're just so desensitized to sex so young. So they watch all this. They watch this, like, you know, mad anal sex with a babysitter, you know, and then that's what they expect as normal. And then they go and they meet their first girlfriend, they're 14, and they anally, you know, rape them. And because they thought that's normal, that happens in the sort of pornos, that must be what happens now. And they've got such a distorted view of sex from such a young age that then they're taking that into their adulthood. And then it's not enough to look at that anymore. They need it to be more extreme, and that's when they start veering off into the real darkness. So it's a problem. It's a real problem.
What's the difference between paedophile ring, grooming gangs, and the individual who's a paedophile who maybe keeps it all to himself and does it? Like, what's the difference between them, or are they all just the same?
I think it all comes down to, like, they all go about it a different way, but they've all got a sexual interest in children. And it's just how they go about that. You know, the grooming gangs, you know, have got a specific tried and tested method where they target broken kids. You know, they get them into, you know, working in the takeaways, doing whatever, and then they just, you know, they get them, people coming over and paying money. So some of those, what some of those did, they didn't do it because they had a sexual in children. They did it because that child was a commodity. That child could earn them a lot of money. They looked at them, and I dealt with a few of them where they looked at that child as just a piece of meat. So they would go in there, be the nice boyfriend, groom them, then move them into the system. So you owe me this, you owe me that. You've had all these drugs for you. You're now going to work for me. I want you to meet my friend here. And then that kid becomes so trapped in that system. They don't know where to go. No one's going to believe them. They don't trust the police, don't trust social services, got no mum and dad. So then they're trapped. So that's a commodity making a lot of money. So that some of them grooming gangs, some of them had a sexual interest in, but others were just making it as making them a lot of money, and they were a commodity to them. Paedophile rings, you know, obviously they worked in groups. They weren't as common as people would think. You know, people tend to be lone wolves and work alone. Yes, sometimes it happened, and they'd talk together on the internet. Maybe share images, share stories, whatever. But the main focus was the sort of, you know, the lone wolves. They would be doing it on their own, doing their own thing. So the common denominator is a sexual interest in children, and not just in children, like preteen. That was the biggest thing. PTHC, we should see it. Preteen hardcore. You know, you've got a lot of paedophiles that they need to look like a child. You know, like sometimes, you know, you see it now. You open up a 15-year-old's, 16-year-old's Instagram, and they're pouting on there, they've got full makeup, and you'd be like, how old is that child? It'd be difficult for you to tell. People's got no interest in that person because they could look like an adult. What they want is a 7, 8, 6-year-old with pigtails and looking like a child, because that's where their sexual interest lays. A child, not a 15-year-old that's glammed up. So
Did you ever bring down people who weren't paedophiles but using kids as like slaves to then have sex and get raped with all these people?
I mean, that was rare. That was rare. I mean, it did happen, but it was rare. You could almost look at them as like a facilitator. You would have a dad that would get off on other people coming in and abusing their child, and would watch and would facilitate it, which is, again, it's just mind blowing. But I think, people had a sexual interest in children, but then it's just how they fed that interest, or how they, worked it or wanted it to go. And there's different, so many different ways and methods and things that people do there. But predominantly it all comes down to the same thing. It's a sexual emotion. Like, it's such a power. I've always said it's such a powerful, like, emotion, isn't it? Like, it made us as blokes do crazy shit. We'd cheat or do whatever. Like, we knew it was a wrong decision, but we listened to our dicks or whatever. We did the wrong things. And it's no different with this. Like, a sexual, lust, whatever you want to call it, instinct, desire will override they'll do some really stupid things, make some really bad decisions. And if you think, if these people, they're looking at it for years, looking at it, seeing it, and they just want to do it, they want to do it so bad, and they'll take some massive risks to do it.
What's the biggest crime you got? What's the biggest sentence?
I think that was the 28 years.
That's a big sentence.
Yeah, 28 years.
Is that recommended? Is that 28 rec or what?
Yeah, so I think he was the 28 years, but I think I'd do I think it's about a minimum of 23, 24. And he wasn't young, so you'd hope that he would, spend the rest of his days inside. But what you've got to remember, which was always always sort of tainted on me, was that, say when someone, oh, yeah, you've been sentenced to 18 years, fantastic. Well, they pleaded guilty, so I only do half a sentence to start with. What's the point of that? Like in America, someone would get sentenced to 400 years one day, and they can have parole at 200 years. It may sound ridiculous, but the sentences here are always, they're cutting. If they plead guilty, they only do half the sentence anyway. So there is some big sentences, but most of them, you're halving them from the word go, and they're protected in protected wings, in open prisons or whatever. So
was there a long game with some people? I know we spoke about it earlier, but people came in who then groom the mother to then, how long would the process be?
It's it could be anything from a couple of months to a couple of years. I think usually they would move within 0 to 6 months, because they would play the long game, but not to the long point where they think there's no gain in it. And most of these people could be groomed quite quick, and then they could be in a position of trust really quickly, and then they can start. But they'll just start the abuse off really slowly. So little touch here, little game, we play this game, we turn all the lights off and we do tag in the dark, and it starts that way, and just keeps escalating.
But it's people who are convicted who then move next to schools and new identity. What can be in place, and can anyone check the system to see, even if they've changed their names, what can anyone watching who's maybe got concerns, what can they do to try and protect their own?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a good question, and probably something I should explain a little bit more. Is let's say, for instance, someone is convicted of a child sex offence, and they go onto the child sex offenders register, and they'll go onto that for a period of 5, 10, 15 years. And in that period, they should be monitored. So they'd be monitored by the police. So they have an offender management team that will monitor that person. Now, that might include, like I said before, polygraphs, weekly visits. But generally, let's say a bog standard image offender, they'll have 2 visits a year, because there's so many of them. So you imagine, you're under supervision, and a cop's going to come and visit you twice a year. And so once he's been there 6 months, he ain't going to come back for another 6 months. When he comes in there, go, what devices you got? Can I have a look at your devices? And they go, yeah, have a look at that and a screw for that. And that's the level of kind of control they've got over it. So it's quite easy to navigate that and still offend and still do your thing. If that person changed the name, it shouldn't really matter. They can go by their new name, but if I was getting into a relationship with someone, if I was a female and I had concerns, I could ask the police if this person's ever been convicted of it's Claire's law, that if they could, convicted of Claire's law is the domestic violence, Sarah's law is the child one. So they could be given disclosure of this person is a risk to you. So there is some things in place, but it's flawed because there's so many people on that register, so many people in the system that it's too hard to monitor them all the time, every day. It's impossible. So there is a thing in place, but it's loose. It's really loose.
So if anybody's there, any concerns or maybe their partner, is anyone they can contact?
Yeah, so they could, if they were thinking, I'm not sure about this.
Or how could maybe they thought they're on a computer, but they're just certain signs, because obviously you says they're highly intelligent. So these people, is there any ways that they can search to make sure on their laptop or their computer to see if they're looking at certain images?
It's really difficult because most people who are dealing with, the dark web or downloading file sharing are really good at hiding it on the computer. So if even me and you open up the computer, we might not see it. But, I'd be suspicious if someone's always, tilting the laptop away, or they've got if they've got file sharing software on their computer, you want to be suspicious. So there's lots of different file sharing, if you Google file sharing software, a bit like apps, it will have different names for them, Shiraz, all these things. And people, if they've got file sharing software on their computer, you want to know why. Yeah, it might be just downloading movies, but you know what? You can stream movies now. You can stream TV shows. You've got Spotify. You don't need to download music. So that is one of the warning signs, I'd say. Why they got that for? Or if they've got .NET, what they got that for? But it's being kind of inquisitive of your partner, isn't it? Just asking a few questions. What are they actually up to? And if the answers are not satisfactory, then you can go to the police and you can ask for. You can ask for Sarah's law, but if that person's ain't been caught, nothing's ever going to come back.
It's mad that you have to go down that route, but like I say, with the football coaches or whatever, is there anything else that in place they could do background checks, or just because these people are around your kids, and there's so many people out there for the goodness of their heart who love football or who thinks they're a football manager and they want to do the right thing, scouts and priests or whatever, but at the end of the day, a lot of the people who get abused come from this sort of industry.
Well, these people would have gone through DBS checks anyway, so criminal records checks. So they're already in the role. So if they've got to that point, that they're probably they've never been convicted or caught before.
Was there a certain field that there was a high end or paedophiles?
We had quite a lot of scout leaders. Few sports coaches as well, teachers and medics, but.
Medics?
Yeah, a lot of medics. We had some doctors, some nurses. We had a paramedic killed themselves. So I think to answer your question, the best form of prevention or trying to, is just speaking to your kids. So, if taking an interest, if they go to football practice, what did you do? Making them a little bit aware of the boundaries and what's not acceptable, what is acceptable, so they feel comfortable to talk to mum or dad and say, Dad, look, today at football practice, Mr. Johnson was, wanted me to, show him the bruise on my leg, so I'd take my shorts off. Well, alarm bells are ringing in it. And I use that as quite a obvious example, but speaking to your kids, knowing what goes on, because these people are in plain sight, and we put a lot of trust in these people. So just, be, inquisitive of what's going on in these clubs and these sports clubs, scouts, whatever. I mean, personally, I always question, what's someone's motivation? You look at this scout leader and you think, you look at it and think, what is your motivation for being here? Is it to help kids, or are you putting yourself in a position to abuse? And I'm, it's being critical of scouts, and of course, the majority of scout leaders are not. But if you're a paedophile, you want to put yourself in one of these positions, don't you? You want to put yourself in there because that's when you can, feed your addiction, get what you need.
How much of it flies under the radar? Because this is only the stuff that people's been caught, but how much flies under the radar? I thought it was 1 in 30. You're saying 1 in 4.
I would say probably what is going on in houses. If someone stays off the internet and they just abuse the right child, right child is the wrong expression, I do apologise, like the child that they see as like a broken biscuit or as vulnerable, then they're likely to get away with it. Same as the rapist, you know, because they're smart in what they do. There's no digital footprints. They're not taking pictures. They're not videoing. They're not sending messages. They just keep it close knit. Then, you know, then it's never going to come to anybody's attention unless that child speaks out, which if they've been groomed and live in fear, they're probably not going to get caught. Schools do a good job. You know, schools do a good job, I have to say. You know, they pick up on things that are not sitting right. The child coming in who's quiet, so went from happy to quiet, and they'll refer stuff over. So, you know, it does get picked up, but a lot of stuff goes under the radar for sure. And that's not just sexual, physical, mental. You know, there's loads of kids, like I said at the start, living in really abusive, fearful households, and, you know, and the services can't keep up with the demand. And that's when you end up with those sort of like horrific baby P types jobs where, you know, it just all goes really, really wrong. So, you know, in an ideal world, we'd you know, round them all up with a big net. You know,
put them on an island.
Yeah, bomb it, you know, all those things, you know, and some. But that's not the world we live in. So all we can do is sort of deal with the hand, you know, we've got. But a lot of it does come down to, you know, mum and dad or mum or dad, whatever, just being inquisitive, knowing what their kids are doing. And, you know, and being suspicious. It's good to be suspicious of people. But, you know,
kids make you feel bad a little bit.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing. Like you think, such and such can do it, this and that. And you're thinking, but they ain't fucking me.
No,
you know what
exactly.
I'm saying? Here with me, I'm not interviewing people. And it, like sometimes I don't want to be as too overprotective, but I just know what the fuck goes on out there. It's difficult. How can I then? I'm a protector.
Yeah.
My whole job is to protect and make sure they're safe.
You're in a minority though, James. Yeah. You're in a minority. Not, I would say the majority of parents, not all, but the majority don't know what their kids are doing, especially as they get older, and they, you know, need to know a little bit more and be a little bit more like yourself and just err on the side of caution, shall we say, because there's a lot of bad people out there, a lot of bad people ready to take advantage of, you know, parents that are not on the ball or parents that are not doing the greatest job. So, you know, we can only hope that.
How are you feeling now?
All right. It's excuse me. When I talk about it and I look back on it, you know, it's therapy. I think talking. You know, I think it's good to talk. It's good to get your story out. You know, like I said, you know, I've listened to a lot of your podcasts. I listen to people from gangsters to cops to prostitutes to porn stars, everything. You've had them all, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
You know, and as you say, everyone's got a story to tell, and everyone goes through hardships. Everyone goes through dark times. Everyone goes through good times. But it's how you sort of learn and move on and just try and, you know, surround yourself with good people. And, you know, try have good morals. And, you know, I think I learn a lot from listening to others, listening to other people's stories. You know, people have had it a lot worse than me, you know, and now they bounce back. So, you know, you take that positivity, and that's why things like this are really good. People can listen to it, even if someone's listening, you know, to mine or someone else, go, actually, you know what, yeah, he what he does is a bit weird. What he does is a bit weird, actually. Yeah, I've seen some file share and stuff, or he's a little bit over familiar with my kids. Actually, maybe I need to be a bit more suspicious. Then actually, this has served the purpose. Served the purpose.
Being too over friendly with your kids, and it's sad to say, but who's really that nice nowadays? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
I love my kids, but the fucking pests.
Annoying.
Well,
Yeah,
you know what I'm
annoying.
saying? Like,
yeah,
if someone's so over friendly, and it's sad because they could be a fucking good person, but for me, there's got to be alarm bells ringing. I think, nah, there's nobody like that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just all the fucking nutcases I know, but it's just you've got to question it. I think, nah.
Yeah. No, I think that's, you know, I think that's a really, you know, it's a really smart thing to do. And, you know, not everyone is bad, but if someone's going above and beyond it, and even their kids, as you say, like, why are they doing that? What are they getting from it? What's their motivation? And that's when, yeah, we should be a little bit suspicious.
What do you think looking back on it all? Like you say, it's a bit of therapy, and like you say, you should be proud, man. What you've done, what you've achieved, like that ain't normal.
No.
And it's something you're going to have to live with, but it's still part of your story, and it's a fucking story to tell. Like, to make it raise awareness, which is so important. Like this could actually help save some kids. You don't know what mother's watching, what father's watching. you don't want to give too much information out
Yeah.
as well, because I'm trying to ask questions, but I don't want to ask certain questions to make them
think
more
I need to
intelligent.
change.
Yeah.
Change
So
trajectory.
it's difficult.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. Yeah, you know what? I do. In time, I'll look back on it much more fondly than I do at the minute. At the minute, I just, you know, like I say, I struggle to sometimes move forward, and I hang on to a lot of baggage. And, you know, like I say, like nights can be difficult with the dreaming and stuff like that, but we're dealing with that. And it just shows you, not just to me, but to anybody working that world, to anybody who's subject to that stuff, is that, you know, that darkness it can do you damage. And if you are struggling with anything, or, you know, things are getting on top of you, you need to seek help. You do need to seek help. There's no shame in that. There's no shame in that.
Exercise, getting out in nature as well. These things do help, cutting away the drink, sort of drugs, eating a bit better. But the things that you're feeling, if you've listened to these podcasts, no matter if you're rich or poor or what industry you're in, everybody feels the same.
Yeah, I know.
No matter what you're really, obviously you've seen the worst of the worst, but everybody's struggling at their own different levels. Yeah, it's not just it's fucking crazy how much we are all overthinking life and stuck in the past, and try to push through it and getting help and try to eliminate this, but yet nothing really seems to fucking work. And you just need to go on with it, and that's the sad reality. Get on with it, but then seek help, speak about it, which is an amazing thing. But as a man, it's difficult to speak because they think, I can just deal with it.
Yeah, of course.
And women, listen, women struggle as well. Women really get in their heads and their thoughts and their emotions more than men, but they deal with it better because I think they speak about it more.
They do.
We dwell on ours.
I do. And it's good that, you know, even for me personally, listening to this podcast and others, when you hear people who, you know, like Craig the Sniper, people like all the people, like even gangsters, whatever, like, as you say, everyone's got some darkness and everyone's struggling a little bit. And I think that's kind of the world we live in. It's like we're controlled by fear and by, you know, we should be scared of this, we should be scared of that, you know, and that there is lightness, there is good in the world. It's trying to focus on that. And I think then we'll, you know, hopefully we'll be all right.
You done a bit of TV work after it all, did you not?
Yeah, so we did we did a bit of 20, I don't know if you've seen 24 Hours in Police Custody.
How was it? Is it different? Bit more light-hearted?
No, I mean, they followed us around on a couple of warrants. The funny thing is about that show is that, like, it's so that they come in and they film days and days of footage. So they come on a warrant with us, and you know, you're mic'd up. So you forget that for a start. You know, you got a mic, you go to the toilet, you think, oh shit, the mic's on. But you know, they would film something and you'd do something and you go walk out and say, oh yeah, can you stop there? Like, I'm probably ruining it now for people. They go, can you just do that phone call again? But this time, like, just so we can record it. And you're not talking to anybody, you know, and you'd be like, fuck, it's getting scripts, I'm trying to act here.
Of acting,
Yeah, but you know, I get it's a good show and it highlights a lot of good work. But what we found with that show was you needed to be careful because they're filming you and you might be thinking you're really pally with them and they're really pally with you, but they can make you look stupid. So you go on there, you may say something, do something that's a bit silly or a bit...
Take out of context.
Yeah, and it's take out of context, you know. And we found that. We'd go into houses and they'd go, oh, fucking seen you on TV, you fucking idiot, you fucking, you know, this. You know, Jesus Christ, I'm not the enemy here. But, you know... and then we had another one, a Channel 4 documentary. It was like catching undercover paedophiles. You know, and that was good fun. You know, we caught someone, nicked him at KFC, thought he was meeting a boy. And then he was in the Daily Mail, actually. He'd done this, like, sort of faint at the counter. And, like, he fainted and then sort of opened one eyes and shut them again. He's like, fucking come on, mate, stand up. But, yeah, it was, you know, listen, like, you know, it was kind of strange because you go on TV and then people who I hadn't spoken to years contact you, oh, no, I've seen that, it's great work you're doing. You feel quite proud. You think, oh, yeah, you know, your dad's watching it, dad's going, I fucking love this son, fucking hell, I'm sending it. Like, you know, so, you know, those sort of things were a bit Hollywood and, you know, you enjoyed it and it was, you know, it was good. But, yeah, it's something to sort of look back on. Sometimes I cringe when I look back at it, oh my God, like, yeah. But
yeah, it's all part of the process.
Yeah.
But you've done amazing work, like I said, proud of you. Very good speaker as well. You present yourself well.
Oh, thank you.
And I know we spoke on it, but for anybody watching that's maybe in a life of struggle right now, what advice would you have for them?
It's just speak about it. From my own personal experience, is that there is support services. Maybe they're not as good as they need to be, and you can get fobbed off by the GP who say, take some antidepressants, whatever. But find people. There's normally people that care about you, love you, and speak to them. And it's a healing process, isn't it? So just don't suffer in silence. Would be my biggest thing, man. Don't, because I tried that. I tried to disguise it with booze, eating shit food, doing whatever. It's destructive. At the end of the day, it's not going to get you to, get you the help you need. So just, keep speaking and stick to the ones that love you and, care for you, and you'll be all right.
Yeah. Well, listen, for coming on and doing
thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a mad one, but listen, somebody had to do it. Nothing but love and respect for you.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what you do for the future, mate. Just keep your head up, keep doing what you're doing, and hopefully I'll still see you on the TV, bro.
Appreciate that. Cheers,
Yeah, God bless you, bro.
Take care, James.